Everybody, what's going on? Brother John here. We're starting God Talk, 9:07 Eastern Standard Time right here, and just waiting for some people to come in. I'm hoping, um, I'm hoping Chris to come in here. His YouTube channel is Barnone11970. Haven't been in to hang out with him in a while. Love to see Idol Smasher, Norse Invasion, Brett Keane, Reuben Goldstein, Suzuki, come on down, and Wayman29, definitely, man, come on down. Jordan Day, hope you'll be able to join us. I'm going to shoot over, while I have you online here, shoot over to make sure the YouTube video went out, and I really do hope that the link is correct. Do, 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 do. Alright, I had just got a message from Jordan. He's going to be here. Awesome. Let me make sure he's got the link. Let's see what's going on. This is only the second time I'm doing this, so everybody chill out. We don't have anybody viewing yet anyway. Alrighty. Well, nobody's viewing, so there's no point in me talking. Looks like we're having some technical difficulties. Let's see. Okay, seems like we're having a little problem here with the links or something. Um, if you're listening to this live, and there is going to be a delay on the live broadcast. So, I mean, the links they're giving me here are on Hangout. They give you an event page link, a YouTube page, and a video embed, all links. So I posted the event page link into the description. Perhaps we need double check, because there are a couple people who do want to get in. I would really like to speak to them. Let's see. Getting used to this whole getting used to this whole idea of the Google Hangouts here. See if Phosphorus Truth is out there. Okay, I'm still not seeing any viewers. Okay. Looks like I might be having a little bit of a delay problem here. I'm gonna try something here. See if this All right, I don't know if you guys hear me out there. Oh man, I'm having a problem here. Maybe I don't know if I'm sending the right link or not. I really apologize because the link here says maybe the link I sent you was just to watch. All right, I'm gonna try another link in case you guys hear me because this is getting ridiculous. Totally ridiculous. All right, let's try this. Let's see. Doing the best I can here, guys. I'm doing the best I can. I'm going to send another link. So I'm going to send you guys a couple of links. Send me an email if, you know. Oh, this is so frustrating. My apologies. And still no viewers unless there's something messed up here. All right, maybe I have to. I'm going to close these windows here. All right, it seems we're having an issue here. And I'm doing a lot of clicking all over the place if anybody's hearing me out there. Sorry, my apologies. Hey, we got one viewer out there. Seems we're having a problem with the link here, getting it to a couple people. I'm going to go, let me open up the page where the YouTube page where it's live. This way, if anybody leaves a comment on there, I will get that as well. Oh, great! See, that's, oh man, boy, I missed the stickam days. It looks like I have to sign back into my third proverb. So I don't know if that was the problem. See if we got any messages from anybody. Oh, hey.
Hey, what's up?
Okay, Chris, what's up, man? Which link was working for you?
The last one you just sent me. All the others, it brought me to your channel, but as like a viewer. I don't know if you saw the comment I left. Google makes this so friggin' impossible. It's ridiculous.
I'm telling you, I feel like I'm going through so many hoops here.
Yeah, it happens to everybody. I mean, the simplest solution would be when you have a Google chat, you should have a button that says invite, and it gives you a link to send people, but they make it so difficult for some reason. I don't understand it.
Well, the thing is, I have a circle. You create your circles. You put, you know, it's called God Talk. So anytime I have these conversations, anyone I'm having conversations in Hangout, I add them to that circle. So then when it says you want to invite people, you just have to, you know, you click that group of people. So now, when you start the Hangout now, on the bottom right, it says links, and they give you event page, YouTube link, YouTube page, and then if you want to embed it. Okay, so I gave the event page, and I thought that was it, but I think that's only to watch it.
I guess so. Yeah, it wasn't until that last one that you sent me that it brought me here. The other ones didn't.
Was it that?
It didn't work at all.
Was it the big long one? A big long one? That's the one at the top then.
Yep.
Okay. We'll get this sooner or later.
Yeah.
All right, give me a moment here. I want to resend that link because I definitely there's a guy named Jordan. I'm really hoping he can get in here.
The link at the bottom worked for me.
Okay. Give me a sec here. Because there is something on my mind I want to talk about like right away.
Do people even know you were doing this? Because when I saw the original invitation, it said that it's doing it tomorrow night.
Yeah, I accidentally hit the, I accidentally hit it. And they had it set up for Sunday was the default tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So I wasn't thinking. I just hit it right away, and that was the problem.
There are no problems, only solutions.
That's it. Okay.
Unless it's Google, then you're screwed.
I miss the stick-am days, I tell you.
Ugh.
Well, I hope Jordan's coming in. Hey, Phosphorus, what's going on, man?
What's up, man? I just woke up maybe about an hour and a half ago.
Wow. What area of the country are you in?
I'm in Tennessee. I stayed up late last night till like almost 6 in the morning.
Okay. I gotta get some. Well, Chris, I was talking with I was with my wife today.
Right.
And we were bringing up. It was an interesting conversation. Like Tesla says that everything. All you have to do is observe frequencies and vibrations. Everything is frequency vibrations.
Absolutely.
The light, sound. The sound from my voice. Colors all operate at different frequencies, and the very Earth operates on a certain frequency as well.
Yeah, I think it's 528 megahertz or 528 hertz.
Yeah, I know you'd definitely be into this and know this stuff. So I was reading where so me and her were just talking, and because this conversation came up yesterday with this guy Idol Smasher. I hope he comes in, James. Really cool. He's a Noahide. But anyway, so it is said that we lose a major part of our connection to nature from not walking barefoot to the ground.
Yep.
We wear these rubber soles. That definitely doesn't allow you to conduct any energy or electricity. And so it was really nice today because the sun was setting, and me and my wife were sitting outside, and we're blessed to have a nice view. I said, I'm talking about it. I said, let's take our shoes off. And it just rained. It was great. It was beautiful. There was a sun shower, sun setting, and there was a sun shower, and it was just nice. The light coming through, just hitting that mist. So the grass was just moist. Took our shoes off, and just walked into the grass, and right away you felt like a refreshing feeling.
Yeah. The problem is most people are taught if you can't see something, then it doesn't exist. But what people don't understand is our capability of what we see as compared to the universe is, I think, either 3% or less. So universally speaking, we're basically blind. You can't see ultraviolet rays, you can't see X-rays, you can't see radio waves. Mm-hmm. So people take for granted that the things we can't see, they must not exist. So if you actually research the hum of the Earth, because like you said, electricity, like the universe is made of nothing other than electricity and magnetism. The electricity is atoms, light particles that are moving at 186,400 miles per second, and the magnetism is what draws everything together. That's why all planets are round, because it brings it into basically a round to an elliptical shape. That's why all galaxies are elliptical. And
right, like when you put the two magnets together, you ever notice it feels like there's a ball in the middle there.
Right, because they're repelling against each other. So forces can either attract or they can repel. Those are the only two possibilities. So when it comes to the Earth, it has, and I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe it's 528 either megahertz or hertz, and it actually has the middle C as a tone. And the way you could tell energy makes a vibration is like, for example, if you've ever had a fluorescent light, as soon as you turn it on, you hear a hum.
Right.
That hum is just nothing more than vibration of an energy.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with colors. Colors are nothing more than different spectrums of light. The spectrum is based on the vibration of that color. So that's why people actually will get drawn to a specific color. What it means is, anatomically speaking, is that you're maybe deficient in that specific light spectrum energy, and your body, through its magnetism, is actually drawn to it. You just don't know why. It just happens. It's like breathing. You don't know why you breathe. You just do it.
Yeah, you just do it. Yeah.
And when it comes to walking on the sand, for example, barefoot, you have so many nerve endings in your bottom of your feet. They're receptors. And if you think about, for example, like dirt or sand, especially sand is primarily made of crushed quartz. Most of this planet is made of quartz, which is an energy receiver. That's why, if you know anything about computer chips, they're made of silicone. Silicone is a form of quartz. It absorbs and uses energy. That's why the first radios, they would take like a ruby and attach a copper wire to it, and it would get electricity. So when you're walking on, especially on the beach in the sand, barefoot, you are actually absorbing the energy from the earth as it pulsates about every 5 to 7 seconds, and it's an energetic healing energy into your body, which brings you in balance. So in other words, you're not sick or in dis-ease.
Disease.
Yeah, that's why they call it disease. Like I talk about on my channel all the time about how words have different meanings than what we're told. When you're sick, they say you have a disease. But if you break it down for what it really means, it means your body is in dis-ease.
Yeah. I actually just speaking of the vibrations we don't see. I was just reading a study they did recently on cats and their vision, and why they're called mystical, and how they give you that, you see that blank stare that they give sometimes.
Right.
But what actually happens with the cat's eyes is they allow a lot more ultraviolet light in. So when they're seeing some birds or plants, they actually see almost a color field around the animals and the plants. And so I thought that was quite. Dogs also.
Yeah, there's plenty of animals that use that, and that's why, like, for example, unfortunately, schools, they still teach the old sciences based on things that they said back in the 1800s. I mean, they didn't have the type of technology that we have today. Originally, they thought that between stars and planets, all that black was just emptiness, that it was a vacuum, and that is the furthest thing from the truth, because they've done experiments where they actually would take a Russian scientist, I forget his name, this was done in either the 80s or the 90s, where they sucked out everything from a tube and expected to see nothing in it. And what they found was billions of light particles all over the tube. So if you actually look at the universe under, like, different spectrums of lights, like radioactive lights, I forget what they use, ultraviolet, you can actually see that space itself is connected. So if you actually looked at your brain, when they show brain cells, how they're all like little nodes that connect to each other, that's what space looks like. But they don't teach that.
Yeah.
Especially when they say we all come from one and we're all connected. Well, it all comes from particles of light, which is nothing more than energy that's attracted through magnetism. And it's basically traveling. I mean, like I tell people all the time, when it comes to the speed of light, it proves that solid is nothing more than an illusion. Because, like I've used for an example, if you have a racetrack and it's a mile long, and when you count to 1, you have a car travel the speed of light. That means in 1 second, that car went around that 1 mile track 186,400 times. It will look like it's everywhere. So it gives the illusion of solid. It's just that light is going so fast, you can't see it, so it seems like it's everywhere.
Yeah, like even if you took put a pen in front of you and just go back and forth, so fast, it looks like there's like a whole bunch of pens, But I'm sure at those speeds, it looks like it could be even multiple solid, like a multiple solid, pen or whatever you might say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
like
there's
you literally, when
at
you
the
look at
molecular level, everything is just a very, it's vibration at every
and
level.
they don't want to teach that. They wanted the people to think that's crazy when it's nothing more than actual science that's been proven. That's why I tell people you want to look at modern science, learn about quantum physics, quantum mechanics, listen to people like Greg Braden, Hassim Naramin. These are the people that are showing what the new sciences are, but they're still teaching the old sciences to keep people stupid.
Yeah, sure.
And it's
But part
unfortunate.
of the point I wanted to get to earlier when I was, introducing this subject. So I was saying this to Idol Smasher. Was we talking about these frequencies and stuff, and the one and him being a Noahide, the first thing that came to mind, he says, "Well, hey, when Moses went up to go see God, God said to Moses, 'Take off your sandals. You're standing on holy ground,'" which I thought that was very interesting. I said, "You know what? That's it. Not that place." I'm sort of a biblical atheist, so don't take me, but um, in an allegory, it's not the place that was in front of the bush; it's the ground itself.
Right.
Take off your sandals, get connected to the ground. All the ground is the Creator's, so it's all holy, in a sense.
It's basically, if people actually research the Bible, it's messages waiting to be decoded. For the
Hmm.
average person, they read it and see it as a story, and they take it literally. But if
Hmm.
you actually read the Bible, it says in numerous times that it's an allegory. In other words, it's not meant to be taken literally. And you can actually break down the speed of light. You could break down the circumference of the earth. You can decipher so many things from that book. It's a science book that they made into a story so people would basically fight amongst themselves and never learn the truth of behind it, what it really is. I mean, you could even look at the creation. If you think of just the beginning, the first part of the Bible, it talks about how God created man in our image.
Hmm.
Our is plural. That's not singular. They also talk about how they created Adam and Earth to replenish the earth. Well, if Adam and Eve were supposed to be the first people in existence, what are you replenishing? Replenishing means you're just doing over again.
Well, wait a minute. All right. Well, there's a couple things. I mean, I know about the God being plural. It's supposed to be Elohim. It's a plural version of God or gods or a council of God. I get that. Um, Now with the Adam and Eve replenished, I remember saying I'm gonna have to probably pull up Genesis.
Yeah, look up Genesis. It says replenish in.
I know it said be fruitful and multiply.
Right. But if you also look at that individual story, what they're basically saying is, and I even asked a priest this a long time ago, because if every person came from Adam and Eve, that means we're all brothers and sisters, which means if you have sex with somebody, you're creating incest, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I always say that technically Adam and Eve were brother and sister. If she they pulled a rib out of him, it's the same DNA, so they're twins in essence. And so
Well, if you look at that in an allegory scientific way, when you see sperm get to an egg, it's a single cell. And the first thing that single cell does when it creates that life is it splits, it multiplies. Now, what is the name of a cell? It's called an atom. So if you're going to make an allegory story about something named Adam, you're going to call it Adam. So when they're talking about a rib being removed from Adam, all they're telling you allegorically is life begins with the splitting of an atom.
Yeah, I heard about this. I think I got this from a lot of it's from Bill Donahue when he
Right.
talks about Atum, being of Egyptian origin, I believe, and in their creation story. So there you go. Like pretty much, the claim is that we had the knowledge, the microscopic knowledge, thousands of years ago. It kind of got vanished away somehow, and they knew about atoms back then, and it was an allegory, like you said, and
Right.
tomb, split the atom, like you say, and they used the story of Adam and Eve. So I have heard that take on it.
Yeah. And that's the funny part, because it shows how beautiful it is that even back supposedly thousands of years ago, they're talking about things that we're just rediscovering now. Like, nobody knew about what atoms were for the past couple of thousand years. We just started rediscovering that with our technology in the past 100 years or so.
Hmm.
But yet, It says it in the Bible. Just basically the way I picture it is, when you want to control something, you need to silence the people that speak. And before internet, before TV, before radio, it was very easy to kill somebody or to keep messages from being spread. So if you think of a person saying, I want to send messages to help my fellow man, the only thing I can do is write a book, because there's no other real way other than word of mouth, and you know how those stories can get changed. But I don't want to get killed for telling the truth. So I'm going to write a coded message in a book and have people that are smart enough to decode it get my message. For everybody else, it'll just seem like a regular story. They don't get killed. Because if you know anything about history, people who try and speak truth all end up coincidentally, I'm sure, get murdered.
So you think this is the case with the whole Bible? Because I don't know if I could see some of that, hidden messages and allegories definitely in some of the stories. I don't know if I can, I don't know if I could buy it for the whole book.
Well, first of all, which edition, which Bible? I mean, they've rewritten it so many times. They've taken things so many times either out or put in.
Well,
it's not the original book as it once was created.
Yeah, that's always my contention, because technically they took books away.
Right.
The Catholics put the first canon in, and there's 5 or 6 extra books in there.
Right. So basically what they did was they put in what they thought would be good. They took out the things they thought people shouldn't know. So how do you ever really learn the full truth when it's been the most doctored book in history? And also people have to understand the book was written by man. And since we know so much about politicians, bankers, and people in the media, they are easily influenced and corruptible. So you really want to take the word that was written by man and passed down as man as the word of God?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that's true? I mean, if all of a sudden I was standing here and all of a sudden out of thin air a lightning bolt struck and it read a book and a voice came out and said, I am God, here is my book. Well, yeah, you're damn right. Well, right, I'm going to believe it. But you're talking about especially the church, who has been persecuting and murdering people for thousands of years, who convinced the people for centuries that the world was flat, and if you went over and traveled too far, you'd fall off the earth and die. Do you really want to trust those people, to be honest, when they've done nothing but persecute for centuries?
Yeah, I hear you.
They're the ones that wrote the Bible. They're the ones that took messages. If you read about the story of Noah, all these different things, they've happened throughout history, way before the Bible was even written. They just copied them.
Oh, yeah, definitely with the creation story. Yeah, we definitely know that there are other flood stories and other cultures and stuff.
Yeah. Well, even the story of Jesus, if you look up how many cultures, all the way back from Babylonia to Greece to Egypt, how many people had a savior? Their savior was born of an unwed virgin mother, was born on December 25th, was crucified and risen. It was a carpenter. It was called in some way, shape, or form the Son of God, which, if you know anything about light, another name for light is a star, another name for a star is a sun. So they're not talking S-O-N, they're talking S-U-N.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I hear you.
I mean, but if people want to believe there was an actual burning bush that spoke to you and you can get swallowed by a whale and survive in its stomach underwater for 3 days,
I know.
More power to them. That's the beautiful thing about free will. You can believe whatever you want.
That's it. And you can sincerely be wrong.
Yeah. And what I have a problem with, from what I understand from my research, is everything comes from one singularity. So if you want to call that single consciousness God, well, then if it created everything, then aren't we part of who that creator is?
That's right.
So we're not separate from him. We're part of it. That's why when they says in the Bible that God is light and they made us in his image or our image, well, then they're telling you you're made of light too. So now we've discovered through our technology, you look at our skin under a microscope, it's nothing more than electrons, which is energy, which is light.
I heard, and I really hope James gets in here, Idol Smasher. We were talking the same thing. We were talking about, there's a theory going out there that Adam and Eve were actually pure light, and these are supposed to be the first beings. And then when God had to kill an animal and put his skin on them or something like that, that this is all allegory as far as their flesh and blood. else.
Well, you'll also notice another person I'd recommend to watch is somebody like Santos Bonacci, Jordan
Oh, yeah.
Maxwell, Max Egan. Not everything they say, but there are certain things that they talk
Right.
about that could definitely help you with. That it
Oh,
just explains that they always talk about sacrificing sheep, and they also talk about bulls. Well, they're
Mhm.
talking about the constellations. They're talking
Yeah.
about things like Taurus, the bull, and Aries, the sheep.
Aries the ram. Yeah.
Right. So they're talking about the constellations as well, like the white horse. That's Pegasus. There's a star called Pegasus. The
Mm-hmm.
three kings are the three stars in Orion's belt.
Orion's belt, which is supposed to be like the place where God sits, the center of the universe, or something like that, right? The Orion belt being part of something else there.
Well, I don't know for sure, but I think that the North Star, at least, is the throne of God that's talked about in Enoch, by the
Yeah.
way that it talks about how the angels swirl around him in a certain way, and that's kind of like the night sky.
Right. Yeah, but it all boils down to the fact that they're not talking about, like, an angel. They're not talking about people that are coming along with bird wings flying around. They're talking about angles of light. They're talking about angles of light, the spectrum with messenger particles. And what was an angel? An angel in the scriptures, the way they talk about, first of all, when they first wrote in the early days of the Bible about angels, they didn't have wings. They looked like regular men. What they're talking about is the wings, is they're talking about beings that had the capability of flight. And because they've never heard of a rocket ship before, people could not actually determine what it was. So they made an allegory statement that these angels had wings, but what they're telling you allegorically is these are beings that could fly.
Oh, okay, so you believe that the angels in the Bible are people who could fly?
Right, because if you ever research about angels, the first century or two that they were talking about angels, they were never depicted with wings. They looked like regular men.
Yeah, yeah, I know. But I
So
mean,
how did they all of a sudden go from these beings with no wings to all of a sudden having wings?
oh, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, this is a stretch now, Chris, for me.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, I
right,
would
but
say that the angels are mostly just personifications of different stars and constellations.
Yeah.
no, but if you think about it, like I always talk about the fact that if you see so many movies where they talk about alien species, and I always found it funny that the people that believe that God exists in the sense of a bearded man sitting on a cloud,
Right.
they say they believe it even though you can't prove it, because no one's ever taken a picture of some guy with a white beard and a robe sitting on a cloud. But
Right.
yet those very same people will say aliens don't exist because I've never seen one. Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't believe in one thing you can't prove based on your faith and then say, well, this can't exist because I haven't seen it. To me, that's hypocritical. But if you think of, for example, if you were a caveman and you knew nothing other than getting food, finding shelter, having no ability to communicate, and all of a sudden some technology that you could not understand came out of the skies, how would you describe it?
Oh no, I get that. I mean, we had something even in modern times. I think it was around World War II. There was some tribe that a plane crashed,
Right.
and they actually made a statue, and because this plane came and brought them some, had food on the plane or something like that. Got a message back to I think the island, back to the mainland, and they were able to drop food for them. So here they are. They thought there was gods. I understand that.
Exactly.
I get that. But wait. When you're talking about now that you're saying that these angels, because from my study, and I look, I don't remember what the word was for angels. It just simply meant messenger.
Right.
Okay. So, but to say that these were guys with wings.
No, I didn't say guys with wings. I said people that could fly, and they couldn't interpret it in any other way, so they made images of guys with wings, saying what they're saying is allegorically men that can fly.
Okay. Well, let's take the two angels that let's see, the story, what was it, with Lot, I think it was. All right, two angels come to his house, right? And oh God, man, somebody refresh my memory.
They come to his house and he lets them in, and then people want to rape him, so he offers up his daughters. That's what you're talking about?
Right, exactly. So here you have a story of two angels now, Chris. You gonna tell me these people were like aliens or?
I wouldn't know either way. I can't answer that question because I wasn't there. How do we know it's not a story? I mean, if somebody made a story about Goldilocks and the Three Bears, does that mean it ever existed?
No, I understand, but you said you said that that angels are beings that can fly,
Well,
right?
that's an assumption based on the fact that if you are, like, for example, if you're in a plane, you're flying. I don't mean that the person himself could fly, but maybe that's the only way they can interpret it because they didn't understand the meaning behind it.
Oh, okay. Now I got you there. Okay.
One
But
thing you
now,
should look up.
how are the angels visiting Lot being interpreted?
Well, again, I don't know because you don't
Okay.
know if it was a true statement or it was just a story or they misinterpreted it.
Yeah.
How do you know? It's based on speculation, so you can't assume one way or the other.
Yeah.
The problem is people say, well, it says it in this book, so it must be real. But if, like, for example, when I was talking about when they talk about angels is really an allegory for angles of light, if you actually look up angles of light and look up the term messenger angles, or I'm sorry, messenger particles, they're
Okay.
talking about angles of light, and because light has consciousness, they actually called them messenger particles, which is what an angel is. It's a messenger.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
my problem has always been,
I have no idea who these two people were visited Lot. I mean, I think the story's kind of crazy, to tell you the truth.
truth is, yeah, but it will, unless you were there, you'll never know if it's somebody that made up a great story or somebody that misinterpreted something, or it could have been something as simple as a person with greater technology than what they could understand. I mean, what if it was a person with a jetpack?
Yeah, here. I just want to say hello, Vekl. How you doing?
Doing good.
All right. I'm sure you'd be interested in this conversation.
I'm just listening. It's yeah.
Yeah, you definitely got, because from coming from a Christian perspective, I'm really hoping to get Jordan Day in here. Said he was gonna come in here. Jordan, man, he's a great guy. He's fluent in Greek, speaks Greek. Has read the the Greek manuscripts, the Bible, and stuff. So I really would love to get his take on stuff. I always, So
okay.
Wayman, I'm hoping to get Wayman in here too. So, but yeah.
Cool.
Anything you want to say, Vekl?
No, I'm just listening to the conversation. At least for right now.
Okay.
I've done very little research on angels and stuff like that in the Bible. I know that they're sometimes described as men. Sometimes, just simple as messengers and stuff like that. Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, depending on the context. So I mean, it all depends on how they could be described.
Yeah. Prescott, man, good to see your face. How you doing?
I'm fine. Can you hear me?
Yes, I do hear you.
Awesome. I've never done a hangout before, so I just clicked on the link and away we go.
Oh, you're a virgin, huh? Okay. Well, not anymore. We just broke your hymen. Your chat hymen.
That's the first time.
Yeah. Well, this is the second one I actually.
I had one.
I've been in a few. This is only the second one I started, and I'm still trying to learn with the links and all stuff and get all these. Just Google makes it a little nuts. But I don't know if you wanted to share anything, Prescott, or if you hear what we were talking about, want to add anything?
No. I'm going to listen for a few minutes and kind of get a gist of where you guys are going, and if I have something to contribute, I will act like I'm having a heart attack and.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, this is not about just me and Chris talking, but yeah.
I know.
Yeah, cool, awesome.
Yeah, because if left on my own, I'll talk like up a storm. So
Yeah.
if you follow my channel, you know that that's never a problem for me.
That's an awesome gift to have, the gift of gab.
Well, that's Italian, that's New York, and a Scorpio all mixed in one.
See, I'm almost right next to you, Chris. Italian, well, former New Yorker and a Cancer, so both water signs. There you go.
There you go. Especially if you're a Sicilian Italian, if you're in a family dinner, you have to be louder than everybody else, otherwise you ain't being hurt.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't come from a full Sicilian. I'm half Italian, half Sicilian. My mother was Italian, Sicilian. She's still with us. My father, who unfortunately he passed when he was only 56, and but he was English-Irish,
Not
actually.
that same with my father, and he passed away 2 years ago.
Yes, yes, yeah, I saw those videos, yeah.
Yeah.
Tough living, man. Yeah.
English Irish, that sounds like probably an internal conflict thing going on, and
That's why I don't drink.
yeah, that's why most do.
Yeah, that's why I did for a long time. Then I realized it's just not going to help it get any better. And I love these kind of conversations. I especially love it when there isn't anger involved, because the one thing I hate is when you want to try and have a civil debate where people have differences of opinion. Belief can be so strong that people want to hurt others because their belief may vary from someone else's. And that's always been the problem throughout history. Why wars have started, why control has started, is people, it's like, your belief is different than mine, so instead of appreciating and respecting it or learning a different perspective, I'll just kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's precisely why Jesus always commanded that we, turn the other cheek and pray for those that persecute us.
Yeah.
Bless those that that curse us.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that people never get, I find funny, when it comes to Jesus, he always said things like, "Why do you call me Lord when you not do as I say?" In other words, you're praying and kneeling down to me, but yet you're not doing the things I tell you need to do to be a better human being.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the hypocrisies. Like, you'll see somebody that's so religious that they'll say it's okay to, like, bomb an abortion clinic. Well, if you don't believe that aborting a fetus is wrong, well, murdering somebody that does it, how is that any different? You can't justify it.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah. And I've seen so many people, they get so angry that their belief is so strong that they're willing to hate somebody and even hurt them just because of somebody having the right and the freedom to make a choice of whatever you wish to believe. Because belief is nothing more than what you're experiencing you hope is right, because you can't prove it, otherwise it'd be called a fact, not a belief.
That's interesting, yeah.
Well, I know that I watched a conversation, or I think it was probably another hangout that John was involved with, where there was a fundamentalist who got very irritated with him and very in his face and
Yes.
told him to go to hell and stuff like that. And
For the record, before the record, I do want to say that he did apologize. Rob did apologize, so yeah. Which is cool. But go ahead, Prescott.
I question the sincerity of that apology, I guess.
Well, we'll see. Hey, I give him the benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
First time. We'll see what happens. Hey, Karlton. But go ahead, Prescott.
Well, my thought on that was that, like, I come from, I grew up fundamentalist, evangelical, charismatic, so when I was listening to him go off on you, John, the thought that came to me, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is because of the conversation, I guess, right now, is that while it's true that belief can inform kind of how we approach these things, and it does for everything. I mean, you can be a climate change, global warming environmentalist, and be informed by your belief about what you think is going to happen in the future, and you want to, sort of change the political dynamics in order to accommodate your belief, and you'll use science, quote science, and so on and so forth, and likewise you get liberal Christians who will actually be quite fundamentalists in their use of texts by Jesus, or the texts that they refer or quote from Jesus, such as turn the other cheek. There's plenty of things that Jesus said that certainly would contradict the notion of turning the other cheek.
Okay.
And certainly when he was in Gethsemane and he told told his disciples to get swords and so on and so forth. And someone's going to say, yes, but that was to fulfill Scripture. Well, it still wasn't. It still wasn't for the purpose of turning the other cheek that he gave that instruction. And there are other examples as well of which I would say he wasn't turning the other cheek.
Yeah, like what he did to the money changers.
Sure.
When he got violent and actually thrashed them out.
Oh yeah. And of course, Acts chapter 21, the money changers are back in business, and Jesus' apostles seem quite friendly with them. But anyway,
I think there's a little bit of a difference, though. I mean, when he said "turn the other cheek," he's talking about being insulted by your enemy. That's vastly different than self-defense or what you see him doing in the temple when he was tossing the money changers tables. So I mean, I don't see that as a contradiction.
Well, what he was doing with the money changers was he was actually doing something that against them that they were actually doing, which was a legitimate practice at that time in temple worship. That Jews who came from away to worship at the temple couldn't bring offerings, couldn't bring animals on long journeys across long distances, and so they would bring money, and in the course of bringing money, they would actually do the exchange at the temple and purchase sacrifices at that time. So we just can't kind of look at money changers as being the problem here. There was something else. If there was something to be learned from that event, it had nothing to do with people carrying on business in the temple, because carrying on business in the temple was something that was necessary.
Well, when he got violent was when they were using it as usury, when they were making profit instead of equal exchange for their money. It's when they started profiting off of the money that they were using is when Jesus had the problem, in the story anyway.
Right.
Well, if we are to deduce from his statement, you've turned this into a den of thieves. Then, but I'm not sure that I remember where there was ever any kind of complaint or a statement made where they were actually charging interest or making profit in the exchange. That you might assume that from something that Jesus said, but I don't remember it actually being in the text where that was the complaint.
Yeah, and that's why sometimes you have to people have to decipher it in their own way, so it all becomes part of interpretation. Somebody may see it one way, but somebody may see it another, but then you have two different sides of the spectrum. They both can't be right. So that's where the debate should come in, that sometimes you can't always get the exact answer, so it's based on somebody's opinion. And if you're popular enough, there are going to be people who are going to follow that person just because they like them. Doesn't mean that they're right.
Hold on a second. I just want. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, because
Yep.
All right, because my computer, I had to reload or something like that. So okay, I just want to make sure. Jordan, he's here. How you doing, man? Jordan, you hear me? Oh.
I guess not.
Not yet.
Not yet. I know sometimes there is a few second delay sometimes when you do put on the window.
Maybe he's ignoring you.
Yeah. I wanted to speak to the turn the other cheek thing, because I did a study on this. It was a number of years ago when I was a Christian, and it was on that one as well as when Jesus says, if they ask you to walk a mile, go walk two. Now my understanding from the studies I got with the turn the other cheek is that understanding a little bit, and I'm sure Jordan could definitely speak to this as well. Now, back then, it was apparently wrong to hit with your left hand. Okay, so when you were hitting somebody with your right hand, you're hitting their left cheek. Now, to turn the other cheek, the person would turn their head, turn their cheek. Now you're in a situation where, one, you either, to hit them again, you're gonna have to hit them with your left hand, which was considered like the, you know, if you, I remember when I was in some Catholic schools, even pretty recent, they would force you to write with your right hand because the left hand was considered evil. That's why it was always the right hand of God, the right side of God. The right hand is the strong hand. These kind of things. So you would have to. So if the person turns the cheek, you either have to hit them with your left hand, or you would have to backhand them with your right hand, which was also considered kind of like not honorable to do that, you know. So turning your other cheek would put your opponent in a position where they would have to really second guess their next action. Okay, and so either they would either stop, you know, and be humbled or whatever, but you would make them think their next position, and that was the idea. That was what I was getting from the turning of the cheek. The other story was similar when they when Jesus said, if they actually walk a mile, walk two. Now, apparently, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody, that if a Roman soldier asked a slave to walk a mile, if he could, the soldier could not command him to walk further than that, or else the soldier would be in trouble. So if you walk the extra mile, now you're putting the soldier now, again, your opponent, you know, you're the aggravator, you know, you're putting them in a position also as well.
Right.
Just my thoughts.
I've heard of that exact explanation as well. Yeah. So. Yeah.
I also think the turning the other cheek thing is a form of control to keep certain powers from ever having to worry about people trying to stop them. Like if you see the basis, because you see that the church is the one responsible for writing the Bible throughout history. As a matter of fact, most kings and queens couldn't write. It was the duty of the church to pass along laws. Now, if we know anything about like the Spanish Inquisition and the Middle Ages, how many millions of people died with holy wars and church Vatican-approved situations, if you think about the basis behind, if you were the Vatican, you were in charge of all the peasants of the world, you don't want them to ever to revolt against you. So if you preach, turn the other cheek, be peaceful, what we're basically saying is accept whatever punishments we give you or whatever commands we give you and just sit there and take it, so there's no revolting and them losing their power. So if you ever think about religion in the reward-punishment basis, I'll give you a prime example of how silly it actually sounds when you break it down looking from their perspective, the people in control. If I was to tell you that they were going to have a radio contest and you had to be the 1,000th caller and you'd win $1 million, and you call up that radio station, you end up being that caller and you win the $1 million, and they turn around and say to you, all right, the day you die, we'll send you that check. That sounds crazy. But if you see what they talk about with going to heaven, what they say is be a good follower, do what you're told, don't abuse the system, trust it on faith alone, do not question authority, and when you die, then you'll be rewarded. Or on the other hand, if you don't do what we tell you, if you go against the grain and try and challenge our faith that we're programming into you, well then, even though you have a God that supposedly is nothing but love, you'll end up in an eternal pit of flames, punished for all eternity. So they use punishment or reward as a means of controlling the masses.
Yeah, it sounds like Caesar's Messiah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you think of it like when Caesar is in charge or any high authority is in charge, the last thing you want is your people to revolt, so you either want to scare them or reward them. It's all about divide and conquer. So if you could preach to your citizens, well, you know, be good to one another, well, then Caesar never has to worry about them all taking pitchforks and torches and going to try and kill him. So if you can instill in people, I mean, it's good to be good to one another, but they're basically doing it to protect themselves, so they can continue for centuries to control the masses through either fear or reward.
Kind of like a variation on the atheist explanation for the creation of God was for people to control the underlings, as it were. Those in authority would use God kind of as the scare tactic.
Huh.
That's how God got created.
Well, you could also look between the New Testament and the Old Testament. You had, in one book, God was a vengeful person who went along and smited everyone. And then in the next version...
According to a Christian reading of the Hebrew Scriptures, that's how they would do it. Yeah.
Right. But then they created a new one where the God was more loving and forgiving. So it basically goes down to interpretation.
Ananias and Sapphira for lying.
Yeah, that's clear evidence that it's the same God.
He's much nicer.
Yeah, he's it's just a new covenant now, so it's grace. But yeah, I do find that yeah, I mean you do see that in Acts chapter 5 with Ananias and Sapphira.
Yeah, so much for turning the other cheek, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guarantee you, like, the politicians of this world and the banksters of this world would love everybody to turn the other cheek. This way they could stick their hand in your pocket and steal all your money, and you don't do anything about it.
Well,
but you are making a distinction, aren't you, Ray? I mean, you are saying that this is how some people can use what the word of God is actually saying, and to their own benefit, right? I mean, it's not that the actual writings itself is actually teaching that, but you're just saying that people can misinterpret that and use it for their own gain. Is that what you're saying, or are you saying that is actually what the writers of the Bible had intended?
Who was that question for?
You.
Oh, well, to be honest, one will never know because we don't know who wrote those, what their reasoning was behind it, and how much it's been altered throughout the times. So it's based on speculation. And if we know anything throughout history, when people talk about stuff, they tend to exaggerate it, or they tend to take it out of context, or it's a matter of somebody that was in charge of interpreting interpreted it wrong. So it's hard to say because all of these things happened at a time where we have no proof other than hearsay. Like, for example, in a court, if you have only circumstantial evidence and, well, this happened because somebody said it happened, that will never hold up in court because it's hearsay. So if people want to believe that man, who is easily corruptible and easily influenced, was dedicated into writing a book that changed throughout history, who has different interpretations, and depending on religion you believe in, is going to have different stories, how do we know which is right?
So everything you said then about the, people using the turning of the cheek thing as a means to control people, you don't have any means to validate whether or not that was the intentions of the writer. Right. Is that what you're saying?
Right, because then, like I said, that's my opinion of it. That doesn't mean it's right.
Oh, okay. Right. I just wanted to hear you say that. Okay. Yeah,
because, like I was saying before, unless God came down himself and lightning struck and there was a book being written in the air and he said, "This is my book," I will believe that in a heartbeat and I will trust in it. But if you're trusting that scriptures that have been changed throughout history from men who are easily influenced by money and control of power, or even fear of death and persecution, how do we know what's actually real and what was either forced, misinterpreted, or just flat-out stories?
Well, that's the problem. I mean, you just brought up a scenario. If God were to write a book in thin air, and and he gave you this book, and then thousands and thousands of years later, people hear about this story. I mean. Right. I mean, what's to say that the same thing will happen with them? You'll have people that'll come along and misinterpret that account, or they'll just write it off and say that was a bunch of baloney.
Exactly, and it also talks about language as well. Because if I wrote a story and I buried it in the ground, and 1,000 years somebody finds it, and English is not known at that time, well, they would try and decipher it any way they could. Like, for example, if I wrote in a story that Joe Schmo was a dirty rat, you and I know that a dirty rat means a liar.
Anti-Semitic, isn't it? Don't be doing that.
What's that?
Schmo, you're being anti-Semitic. Don't do that.
Sorry. Didn't mean that. We'll change it to John Smith. But if I wrote a story saying John Smith was a dirty rat, you and I would know that means that guy's a liar or he's a snitch.
Right.
1,000 years later, they could take that as, wow, that must be a god that was a rat god. because why else would they talk about a rat? He was saying, oh, it must be a rat god that didn't bathe. So you could actually take a way that you decipher something and take it literally and totally take the context of what the story means. It's all about interpretation and language.
I think if I can chime in for a second, I've been having a nice nap here.
Oh, good.
But,
I thought you were collecting your rollover minutes here, Colin, because I know you...
exactly. Well, I just want nothing profound. I think that there's two sides to this, the coin of the idea that the Roman Catholic Church or the Rome or people in power in general have sort of utilized the turn the other cheek mentality to create a submissive following. I think that certainly that certainly does happen. But I think that there's another explanation that I think probably happens more frequently. I think that typically throughout humanity, not just related to Christianity, people that find themselves on the at the bottom of the ladder, or the ones being abused, whether they're slaves, whether they're poor, whether they're whatever it might be, people typically have this desire to sort of compensate for that horrific life or whatever they're going through by trying to find some sort of a silver lining, some sort of an upside, so that they're not constantly depressed or suicidal or what have you. They're trying to look for there must be some benefit to this. So I think that excuse me. I think that to a great deal, I think that a lot of people, especially within Christianity, they look to Jesus, who certainly was described as a sacrificial lamb, lived his life and allowed himself to be crucified in order to benefit other people, and certainly the storyline of heaven for those who live a righteous life. I think that people put themselves in that position of being submissive followers, because it's a wonderful storyline in terms of, if I happen to be poor, or if I don't happen to have any power, or if I have what might be thought of as a bad life, I can what's the word I'm looking for? I can lift up my spirit, so to speak, by acknowledging sort of in my mind that I am being very Christ-like, and that I am going to be sort of just like Jesus was. I'm going to be passive, and I'm going to let the world step on me, because I know that when I die, there's going to be some reward for me in heaven. So I think that while the church can do this, or an external force can push that down, I also think that there's a far greater grassroots effort that springs out of that, so that people put themselves in that position because they want to identify with Jesus, they want to identify with the passion, they want to identify with being with sacrificing for a noble cause, and so it allows them to go through the things that they have to suffer with some sense of hope or possible redemption down the road.
I think that definitely has a part of it, but I think also that has to do with being able to, how easily it is to control the thought patterns of masses of people, because they tend to be followers more than they are leaders. And what it does is it takes the responsibility from themselves and says, well, if I'm good, I'm going to be rewarded. If I'm bad, I'm going to be punished. So I'm not going to do something for fear of what could happen. And what I've always said is, if you look at the people who have controlled people throughout history, whether it's the church, whether it's kings, politicians, what have you, especially when you're talking about the Vatican or the churches, they are some of the most corruptible people. The politicians, they start wars. The Vaticans approve wars or approve things that happen to millions of people throughout the centuries. Well, if they really believed that if you're supposed to be good, you'll go to a heaven and be rewarded, or if you did all this evil and you'll go to a burning pit of hell, then why are they continuing for thousands of years to basically destroy their fellow men? To me, it's almost like do as I say, not as I do. In other words, they have the power to do it because they feel they're above, but yet if you do it, you'll be punished. It's a psychological thing if you really break it down.
Yeah, but I don't think people at the bottom of the pile, I don't think they don't revolt for fear of being punished. Now, and I understand when I say that, I don't mean, yes, I'm sure they're afraid of, the immediate retribution of the government or whoever is they're rebelling against. I don't mean that. I don't think that they don't do it out of a fear of eternal punishment. I think that, because I don't think anybody could justify it that way in their own mind. Because if I really thought that I was behaving that way, then I would think I was behaving as a coward, and nobody wants to view themselves as a coward. We would like to think of ourselves as being willing to stand up for right, even if it meant some kind of a punishment afterwards. So I tend to think that people view that as more of that God has ordained the government to be there, and therefore their obedience to the government, even though they see that government maybe as being treating people poorly or being an evil government, is something that is pleasing to God, because otherwise, if God didn't want them to be there and to be obedient, the government wouldn't be there at all. So I think they look at it from a positive spin rather than a negative spin.
I think it's just interpretation of reality, because if that was the fact that God supposedly ordained governments and they can do whatever they want, including murder and capital punishments and torture, well then why didn't God create Adam and Eve and a jury?
Well, not that they can, and I think careful there, because I don't think I'm not saying, and I certainly don't think the Bible supports the idea that if the government is there, that because God put them there, that means they have carte blanche to do what they want. I think they're under the same rules as everybody else. I think the message there is that those of you who don't constitute the government but are under the government's rule, that you should submit even though it's unjust, because ultimately God's going to judge the people that are in the government that are doing wrong, but it's not your job to upset the apple cart, so to speak.
Right. So basically what that's saying is hope that the people that are in control are doing the right thing and just sit by and let it happen. I think that's an atrocity. That's like if somebody went into your house and tried to rape a family member. You're going to say, well, it's up to God to let it happen, or do you stop it because it's wrong?
Well, I know I'm not agreeing with it. I'm just saying that I think that's how it plays out. I think a lot of times in people's minds.
Nope, I think he wants to speak. He's raising his hand.
The bathroom's down the hall to the left, but
just quickly, before Prescott, before you go, I just want to say, hey, Jordan, I want to make sure your mic works.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Yep.
There you go.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right, go ahead, Prescott, and Jordan, if you want to add anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be really short on this, because it sounds like actually you guys are kind of coming at the same idea from I think probably different perspectives, but certainly in Romans, Paul very clearly talks about that whole thing about how you should be submissive to your earthly authorities and do what the government tells you to do because God put them there, and what, gosh, I forget his name.
You put Barnone.
Him, yes.
Me?
Chris.
No, my name's Chris.
Chris, what Chris is saying is that this is precisely why it's why we should question why that particular text is there, or why the text of do unto others is there, is that it is a way of manipulating people, or it can be used to manipulate people into being subservient, and in fact it's asking them to surrender their own wills for the greater will of God to be carried out, and He'll look after the judgment, and you just have to be put upon.
Right.
But you're actually,
why does God need a middleman anyway?
Well, I mean, if you read if I had to just interject and off the cuff say, well, why is that verse there? I mean, one thing that comes to mind right away is if there were people at that time that were trying to sell Christianity, if you were, to be a compatible religion within the Roman Empire, one that was not a threat to the Roman government, then the very first thing the people that are trying to sell that idea are going to do is to try and make sure that the followers or the adherents of Christianity are not causing ripples within the Roman government by disobeying it and running counter to their laws. So I mean, it very much comes across as guys, just do what they say. Everything's going to be okay. With the left hand, and with the right hand, we're over here with the emperor going, this would make a really fine religion if we adopted this into the Roman Empire.
Are you saying that Paul was a double agent, maybe?
Well, I don't know that it was Paul necessarily, but I mean, just looking at that at this, as on first blush, that's a little bit what it sounds like.
Yeah, but also look at, like, for example, with the Roman Empire. I mean, how many, like, the Jewish faith, how many Jews did they persecute? It was just a different religion from theirs. So what they're saying is follow us, but if we want to kill another religious faith, you know, it's a little hypocritical.
But they weren't. But remember, the Romans weren't persecuting the Jews or Judaism because they had a problem with the religion.
Right.
It was actually the zealotry that was actually taking place to overthrow the Roman authority that was such a threat to the Romans. Right. And because they were quite effective in some of their campaigns in that area, which is why you read the whole Gospels and you hardly ever read any mention of the Romans at all. I mean, let alone Gentiles, except for in the crucifixion story.
I read. I just finished reading a really good book, actually for the third time. It actually was a good book, but it's by the author's name is Candida Moss, and she comes into Hangouts every now and then. She's a graduate of Yale and Oxford, and she's a New Testament scholar. And she focuses on the first 3 centuries of Christianity, that era. She wrote a book called The Myth of Persecution, and she addresses exactly 2 ideas. She addresses the idea of martyrdom and how that came to be and how it was used effectively in terms of a story to the other Christians. And she talks about the reality of the Roman persecutions, and very much like you said, and I'm sorry, I don't your name's not showing up there, so Prescott, sorry. And very much like you said, she says there is a difference between persecution and prosecution, and that in a lot of these cases, the newly formed Christians, if you were doing things that were contrary to Roman laws. The Romans could have cared less about a Jewish Messiah, but they were interested in people that were upsetting the apple cart in terms of governmental authority. And so she tells a couple really entertaining stories. I won't do all, but one of them that amazed me sort of what she said during this time period. We actually have historical reports of martyrdom wasn't seen like it's seen today, in the sense of it wasn't seen as suicide that was a bad thing. The notion was taken from the Greeks, and people actually admired or looked for a way to die a noble death that would sort of enshrine them for future generations. This was a good thing to be martyred. She said, we actually have historical references of groups of Christians, bands, showing up at Roman governors' houses in the middle of the night demanding to be martyred and being sent home, because, the guy's trying to get
Now, Karlton, let me ask you a question. This person that's making these claims there. Yeah. I mean, certainly that may be the case for some groups of people, but is she making a generalization that the martyrdom that did occur during these times was not martyrdom at all?
Well, no. I want to do her justice. I don't want to misquote her what she said. If I recall correctly, the summary sort of the book is that during the first 300 years of the church, there really was only somewhere around 15 to 20 years total where there was any type of persecution from the Roman government that was specifically directed at the Christians from a couple emperors. And even those total of 20 years, it was typically it was administered in a very regional manner. So it wasn't across the whole Roman Empire. They were particular governors in particular areas at particular times that did do things like that. So she's not saying that there were no persecutions, but she's saying in general there was no campaign of the Roman Empire to wipe out Christianity, not the way that it's typically portrayed anyway.
Well, what's this author's name? Can you type it in the chat?
I get one better. I'll show you the book and then I'll type it in the chat. Hang on.
Oh, okay, great.
I'm curious, there's 15, 20 years of total persecution out of the first 300.
Now, I'm sorry. So here's the book, and I'll type this in the chat. It's called The Myth of Persecution, How Early Christians Invented a Story of Martyrdom. This is the author, and she's on Google, by the way. She's joined us. We've had her in a hangout once, which was just fascinating, listening to her and talking to her. She's a very nice woman.
Her name is Candida Moss.
Candida Moss. Yeah, and I'll do her justice here. Professor of New Testament and Early Christianity at University of Notre Dame, graduate of Oxford University, earned her doctorate from Yale. Frequent contributor to National Geographic Channel. Moss is the award-winning author of several scholarly works on martyrdom, including The Other Christs and Ancient Christian Martyrdom. She lives in South Bend, Indiana. She's English, by the the way. But yeah, I'll type it in here in a second. But it was a good book. It's an easy read. It's not a what's the word I want? it doesn't come across like a textbook type, that you're going to read. So it's a little bit more entertaining than that. But I thought she did a pretty good job.
Did you say her name was Candida?
Yes. All right, let me type it in here.
That's kind of funny because I was just talking to I was talking to Idol Smasher and another one. We were talking. I was talking to Suzuki. We were talking about bad bacteria in the body and.
Candida. Yeah,
Candida or anything in the stomach is a bad bacteria.
Well, she's not. She's actually just a wonderful person to talk to.
No, I'm sure.
So no. So that's her name. That's the title of the book. If anybody wants to borrow the book, let me know. As long as you promise to send it back, I'll be happy to loan it.
Do we need a Karlton library card?
And you know what? I hate to tell you what the punishment is if you're late on that book coming back.
Oh man, Jordan, did you want to add anything here?
Am I unmuted now?
Yeah.
Okay. I have a lot of background noise in my house sometimes, so I have to mute my mic.
Okay.
But it did remind me of I remember when I was reading Fourth Maccabees, something. It's been so long since I read it, I don't remember the details, but I remember someone committing suicide, and it was still considered an honorable death, even though he fell on his own sword. And I guess that sort of, ties into what this Miss Candida Moss is saying about the mindset back then, how it's a little different than it is now.
Not quite sure I'm making a connection.
I was muted there.
Falling on a sword. What?
Well, I think just that, right, Jordan? I mean, you're saying basically, like today, if somebody commits suicide, we look at that as sort of a bad way to die, a bad thing. Whereas they didn't. They looked at it as at least potentially something very noble, that dying for a good cause was, taking your own life was a good thing. Not that you would be denied heaven or anything like that because of it.
Well, again, that depends on your religion, too. I mean, you talk to a jihad, suicide is, if you do it for talking about your God, you're supposedly rewarded in heaven. So it all depends on, what religion you're believing in.
Yeah.
I had something happen.
But I think though, you want to be careful though, because you don't want to associate, because there's always a counterfeit of something. You have something that's genuinely something that's genuinely martyrdom or persecution, but then you have like what you said about the jihadists, strapping bombs to their backs and stuff like that, or walking into a crowded area and blowing themselves up. We definitely wouldn't identify that as martyrdom, but they would.
Right.
I think we should be. I would say the rational thinkers here, looking on the outside. I mean, outside looking in. I would definitely look at that as a counterfeit martyrdom. I wouldn't definitely associate that with what happened to the church, centuries ago.
Yeah, but that also depends on what religion and what area of the world you were born in. I mean, if you were born in China in the Ming Dynasty, you're not going to be talking about Catholics or Christians. So
Right.
it basically depends on where you're brought up, because even if you talk about the Roman Empire, it depends on what part of the Roman Empire you're talking about, because the original Romans worshipped several gods.
Well, if we're talking about the true definition of terms, then I mean, if we're talking about the martyrdom as what happened to the church, or we're talking about what happened with the jihadists, what's happening with the jihadists today. I mean, obviously they're two separate things.
Right. So it's all about interpretation and perception.
Yeah. So how does one go about discerning which one is the true definition of martyrdom?
How do we know any of them are the true definition, or
Yeah,
if
I
they're
think-
even right?
See,
Yeah,
that's where we have a problem with subjectivity. And when somebody makes a dogmatic claim, it and can't substantiate it, shouldn't even say anything.
Only our version of martyrdom is correct. Everyone else is wrong.
Everybody else is
Well,
wrong.
again,
That works.
well,
But that's-
unless we can validate it, yeah.
Well, but he makes a good point. But that's true. I mean, the word martyr. I mean, she actually deals with that. The word martyr came along much later. It actually meant something very different. It used the word martyr when it was first brought up meant a witness in a court case. Is actually where the word derives from. So it had nothing to do with what we think of it as today, anyway. But the act. Yeah, I mean, it's just a word is just a word. So
Yeah.
define it however you want. So if you want to say that suicide bombers don't qualify as martyrs, maybe because you don't think that taking somebody else's life in the process gets you into that group. Okay, fine. You define it, make it be whoever you want. But I think, but I think most of us understand when we talk about martyrdom, we have a general idea what we mean by, by the word.
Well, one thing you also have to be careful about when it comes to saying that a word is just a word, it can't do anything. If you know anything about science and about vibrations, different types of spectrums of vibrations can influence you. So if you actually study the history of the English language, it was based on being able to have certain words that can be said that can actually create physical ailments in a body. Because a word is nothing more than an energy of different levels of a spectrum. And if you know anything about a high-pitched sound or somebody scratching their fingernails on a chalkboard, it could physically affect you. So words are, I study a lot about this with language. Words do actually can just be spoken, but affect you in a physical way.
I didn't mean it that way, Chris.
Yeah.
I simply meant that that there's, we can define the word however we choose for the purposes of the discussion.
Right. So technically there's no right answer and technically there's no wrong answer. It just depends on what you believe in.
Yeah,
That's one of the reasons why I have a problem with people like this Candida Moss. I mean, I'm not trying to rule out that everything she writes in her book is false. Granted, there are instances where people actually jumped into the fire, in the name of Christ, and people deem that as martyrdom. However, I mean, a material like what such as what she's written should not be used as a means to prove that there's absolutely no persecution or going on today or has ever
well, that's
occurred.
Yeah, but that's not okay. But be careful there, Vekl. I mean, that's not what I said. I mean, and I was very careful
I know,
to try and articulate what she wrote.
Yeah,
so,
but I'm doing some research on the material, and some of the stuff that she says, some of the quotes that I'm seeing, I mean, it just seems like she's making some real dogmatic assertions here.
Can you read one?
Like,
read one to us.
Let's see here. What is this one? The Age of Martyrs is a fiction and a false history of persecution.
Yes, and that doesn't. But that is not the same thing as saying that no martyrdom accounts occurred. What she's saying there is the concept or the picture that the church has painted of this history over the years is very much exaggerated from what the historical truth seems to be. That it's been enlarged, artificially inflated beyond what it really was. So and in that sense, I think. What she's saying, okay. I don't think she's saying that there were no, I mean, she even says that in the book. She's not saying that none of these accounts are true. She's not saying that there weren't really people that were persecuted by the Roman government for their faith. She's just saying that our notion of the scope of that problem is not in line with reality.
I'll give her the benefit of the doubt.
Well,
for
read
that.
the book. Read the book, Vekl. I mean, I'll send it to you if you want.
Yeah.
She's not like my relative or anything. I don't care if you disagree with her.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Well, what's her stance? She an atheist? Or?
I don't know. I actually think she's I think she is a theist. I don't know that for a fact, but I believe she is. Just from listening to her talk and the way she writes in her book. But I could be wrong.
My understanding as well is we do have this idea, like you were saying, Colin, that the persecution seems to be like something on a daily basis for many years, and from my understanding, compared to the amount of believers over, say, the first 300 or whatever 500 years, the percentage is pretty low of those who've been persecuted or even fed to the lions.
Yeah, I think that imagine it this way. Imagine that tomorrow the seven of us, start our own religion, and in our religion we decide that our God has spoken to us, and He has told us that we should not be paying taxes to the government, that it's immoral. And so we go. Yeah, I know. I could go for that one too. But let's say we do that, right? And so then, starting tomorrow, the seven of us stop paying taxes. Now, at some point, hopefully, if they catch up with the bureaucracy, the government's going to come looking for us because we are breaking the law. Now, somebody who's outside of our group could look at us and say, or look at the government and say, "Oh my God, look at the U.S. government. They are persecuting this group of seven religion over here. They're picking on them." Well, yes, they are, but they're doing it because we're breaking the law, and not because we believe in
Right.
our God.
Well, this one I definitely got to interject with because my channel is based on government stuff. Which government are you referring to? Because in the Act of 1871, they created a new constitution and a corporation known as the United States, which is different from the continent of North America. So if you know about how government really works, taxes are actually choice. It's a choice. You actually do not have to pay them. You choose to pay them because they tell you to. If you actually, the one thing I will highly recommend to anybody who wants to speak about government, look up the Act of 1871 and start learning what this government really did. It actually sold out its country to keep it from going bankrupt into the Civil War.
Well,
A corporation in the District of Columbia.
I'm not educated on that, so I'm not going to be able to. I'm not going to really be able to speak to that.
Well, Karlton, I do want to respond to what you said, though. Your example, actually, there is an example of that you can see on YouTube. There's a preacher named Reuben Israel. You probably seen footage of him in the streets holding up the signs, you know, turn and burn, that type of thing. He's a bald guy with a beard.
No.
Wear shades. Okay. Yeah, he's kind of annoying. But he has this video called Christians Being Persecuted by Muslims. And so when you click on the video, it's him with a whole bunch of other supposedly Christians holding up these signs, and they're walking in the middle of a Muslim, some sort of festival, Muslim festival.
In the States or somewhere else?
Yeah, no, here in Michigan, Dearborn, Michigan, and he has a rod with a pig's head on it.
Yeah, well,
and he's walking in the middle of this Muslim festival, and now obviously the Muslims are going to get mad.
Yeah.
And so they're throwing stuff at him, they're throwing bombs, they're cursing at him, and then so and that's all he basically recorded, you know, and he tried to make it look like, oh, you know, we're being persecuted by the Muslims.
I mean, here's my, I've got an example just like that. God, sorry, Vekl.
Yeah, but you know, that's an example, I think, that kind of goes along with your analogy.
It does. I mean, I have one just like that, which goes back to when I was in my 20s and I was in the Navy, right? And I was on the Enterprise, and we had just done a Westpac. We'd been out at sea for 8 months, and we finally got back to the States, and we pulled into dock, you know, Friday night, whatever it was. So, well, Saturday morning, there was some young, cute little 18-year-old girl in short shorts and a tank top, and was well endowed, who decided to go jogging around the pier where the Enterprise was docked. And later filed a complaint that a whole bunch of sailors, you know, were wolf whistling at her and making comments, you know, about her. I'm like, well, what the fuck did you expect? You got 6,000 guys that haven't seen a girl in 8 months, and you want to come jogging by in hot pants and a tank top, and then you're surprised that they're commenting about it. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. I know. But I have a question. Can I ask? I got a question I want to ask. If that's okay, Vekl.
Yes, you may, Karlton.
Thank you, sir. I had this thing I did yesterday. I hope none of Phosphorus may have heard this. I don't think the rest of you did. And I did it as a sort of experiment, kind of just it just happened. It was just one of those things. I didn't plan it. But I went to Walmart, okay? And when I went to Walmart, there were two guys outside the door collecting money to start a homeless shelter in the area, all right? Which I would say this is a good thing. Now, for me, the downside to this was a Christian missionary organization that was also very heavily into preaching to them and evangelizing these people, and you know, they were joined at the hip. Okay, so the guy asked me, you know, he held his little bucket out, and as I went in, I had that moment where my brain froze, right? And then I said, well, I need to think about this. I said, I'll get you on the way out. So I went and did my shopping, and I came back out, I had an idea, and I went up to the guy, and I said, okay. I opened my wallet, and I had $6 in there. And I said, here you go. So I tell you what, it's a good cause. I'll give you the $6 if you promise that you won't evangelize anybody, won't talk to anybody about Jesus for 1 week. That's the deal. And he said, no, I can't do that. You know, that would, I can't deny my God. And I said, well, all right, what if I give you $20? Would you do it for $20? And he goes, no, I can't do that. And I went to 50. I said, I'll go back in Walmart, hit the ATM, I'll give you $50, and I'll put it in your bucket. All you got to do is promise me you won't preach about Jesus for a week. And he thought about it for a second, and he finally said no. Now, and I took my money and I went. And so, but later in thinking about that, we had a hangout about this the other day. I had the mixed emotions. There was a part of me that said, well, that was kind of, it was nice to meet somebody that was principled enough that he wasn't going to kind of go back on his beliefs or his principles, even though he was out trying to collect money, and this, to do this. But then the more I thought about that, I said, well, it's principled. If I was going to give him the $50 to deny his faith and he said no, then that was clear cut. But this case, he's upholding a principle, and at the expense of doing that are people who don't have a roof over their head. So he's kind of throwing them in front of the bus in order to hold up his principle. And so it was like, can you really have a moral principle that when you follow it causes undue pain or distress to another human being? Is that really being principled or not? But anyway, I just want to throw that out there because I thought it was an interesting thing that happened. And I should say, I want to get this because I want to get myself off the hook. Is right up front. I came online today. I found somebody who was actually getting thrown out of their apartment, and I went and donated $50 to their PayPal account because I didn't think, just like this guy was, I didn't think that my disagreement with this guy should impact somebody else who didn't have a dog in this race. All right. But as far as the guy, do you think that he was principled, or do you think he wasn't? And Vekl ran away.
Yeah, I was hoping you didn't offend him.
Well,
I think that's exactly how I would have ended up looking at that, because it's kind of like, comparing, like in the previous conversation where we're talking about turning the other cheek. And how does that line up with do unto others as you would have them do unto you? Because if I were to strike somebody on the cheek, and according to one verse, he has to turn the other cheek also. But according to do unto others as you would have them do unto you, what is his response supposed to be in that scenario? And I guess kind of what you're measuring against a person's kind of fundamentalist mindset of where he would never dare offend his God by being silenced, especially by by money, but he doesn't value the people that he's claiming to help. Is he really trying to help them by building the shelter, or is he actually just trying to create a venue by which he can actually carry out his proselytizing activities?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same thing. We're willing to be struck on the cheek, for the sake of what we believe, and turn the other cheek also, like a good fundamentalist, trying to follow the rule. But in doing unto others as you would have them do unto you, striking someone on the cheek is really not reflecting that particular, almost a universal value of.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, I'm an atheist, just for those of you that don't know me, but I can't imagine that if God existed and he was the God as described in Christianity, that he would somehow elevate worshiping of himself over taking care of your brothers and sisters, right? Whatever happened to greater love has no man than this, that a man it gives up his life for his friend. So it seems that in Jesus' ministry, he put a priority. He always took care of the practical. That was the other thing I always liked, right? In the New Testament, it was never like, well, I'll heal you, but first you got to sit through a sermon. Even the 5,000, he gave them the fish and loaves first. He fed them first, then he talked, not the other way around. So he always seemed to have his heart in the right place as far as taking care of people. But it seemed like in this instance, I don't know. I talked to a couple Christians. I got different answers. I had one woman who told me that she would have done the same thing, but she would have justified it by believing that in holding up her principles, God would have somehow magically put that $50 in the plate somehow. Okay, I'm like, well, yeah, whatever. Now I had another Christian who I thought was actually more interesting, and she said, "Oh, I would have lied to you. I would have told you yes, taken the money, and then kept preaching."
Because God would have understood.
And that's yes, And I'm like with her. I'm like, if God's got to punish me for doing something wrong, I think that would be the lesser punishment than the other one. So
That's why I love the bumper sticker, and it's my philosophy now. My karma ran over my dogma.
yeah, it's exactly. It's like I just found that an interesting real world sort of example of this is why for me when people say, well, when atheists, you always hear atheists say, well, religion's harmful to society, sort of this generic statement, and I've been pinned in the corner a few times and people say, well, how? This is a classic example of how it's where your dogma, your belief system, actually in following that you actually end up hurting your fellow man on occasion. It doesn't always turn out to be a helpful thing.
Well, you got to realize, Karlton, and I think you were a Christian as well.
Yeah.
You gotta realize, coming from his point of view, that to deny his Savior is a much greater sin than to deny, any help to the homeless. Like when Jesus says, if you deny me before men, I'm going to deny you, before my Father.
But he also says
that's very serious stuff to,
it is
Christian.
But keep in mind, he also said, as you do it to the least of these, you do it unto me. So in terms of not giving that money or making sure that money got to that person to help them build a shelter, you did that to Jesus.
Well, the thing is, what's the greater wrong, the greater sin? Denying Jesus or denying the lesser?
But that's the interesting point of it. Sin is sin. Theologically, there is no greater or lesser.
Yeah. What we're really talking about is the way in which both camps are fundamentalists in their own right.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be, shall we say, a leftist Christian, socially leftist, then I've got my choice verses that support my fundamental view.
Yeah.
And that all the rest who are using these other Bible verses, they're all wrong. But it's back to this guy that was chewing out John on this other channel, was that all he was doing was he was just being true to his own fundamentalism, because if you read in Hebrews, to him, John is demon-possessed. Now, I haven't met John. I have my suspicions, but anyway.
You have suspicions that I'm demon-possessed?
But in Hebrews, like it's very clear that for a person who has tasted of the heavenly gift and who has been enlightened, and if he falls away, it is impossible for him to be brought back to repentance. Well, if it's impossible for John to be brought back to repentance, then that necessarily means that John's going to hell.
Right.
So for him to say John is going to hell really isn't any kind of a judgment on John at all.
No.
According to his fundamentalist view,
It's a statement of fact.
It's just a statement of fact.
Yeah.
Right.
Unfortunately, by the anger that was exhibited in that outburst, I think that it was coming not from a place of enlightenment himself, but he was a little angry.
It was more like a fervent hope rather than a statement of fact.
Hey guys, if I interrupt, I just wanted to say I have to get going, so I wanted to say good night to everybody, and it was a good chat, and I hope we do it again sometime.
Nice meeting you, Chris.
Yes, definitely. Enjoy the rest of the night, guys.
All right, buddy.
Thanks,
Thanks. Take care.
Chris, thanks for stopping by, man.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. I appreciate it. We'll do it again.
Wait a minute, stop. Wait a minute, Chris.
Oh,
Chris. That's a raccoon behind you?
I hope not. No, that's one of my cats.
I just saw the striped tail, and I thought maybe he's a veterinarian.
That would be another good reason to go, then, if I have raccoons to hide.
Or
take care, guys.
Cudamundi or something. Okay, see you later.
Yeah, right.
It's a raccoon.
Yeah. It's like, oh, wait a minute, what was that?
I met before I forget. I met Chris through YouTube here, and he's a really good guy. He does talk a lot about the government, the hidden things in the Constitution, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But he's also interested, and things I'm interested in as well, is natural healing. Natural remedies. And but if you're interested, his channel is Barnone11970. You can check him out there.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, if I can, and I'm sorry, I know. Third, I think you and I have talked a little bit. It's John, right?
Right, John. Yeah.
Yeah,
Tell me, John.
no, Prescott. I don't think we've not talked. And I don't think I've met Jordan before. So, you guys want to fill me in on? Hi, who are you? I'm just what your background is, whatever, you know.
Well, I've talked enough already. I'll let. Is it
Jordan?
Jordan. Yeah, Jordan.
Jordan? Go ahead.
You have the floor.
I'm being uncharacteristically polite.
Well, let's see. I know John through YouTube. I guess we met on there about 6 years ago. Was it, John?
Yeah. We were going through about the same. Both going through our deconversion at the same time.
Yeah. Or according to that other guy, I guess both becoming demon possessed at the same time, having tasted the light. That's about all there is to know about me. I'm a fairly new dad.
Oh, congratulations!
Oh wow! Yeah.
And I'm sorry. You won't get that till later, but you know.
Congratulations on number 2. Congratulations.
Thank you,
That's
John.
awesome. That's awesome. So now you were a Christian before, I take it, yes,
Yes.
or something else,
Yeah.
a Christian. Okay. Now, were you sort of the born again type, or were you more just indoctrinated and raised in a religious home? And how did you?
I think it was both. I think I was, of course, I was born into and indoctrinated in a very religious, fundamental household, and my grandfather was a minister. My mom was very, very serious about it. We were at church every Sunday morning, every Sunday night, every Wednesday night, and if we had revival, we were there. But then, like, I became a teenager, I guess I felt like a need to make it personal and get serious about it myself. And so I guess I did about as I tried the hardest that a teenager could do, I guess.
Yeah.
And then when I was in my early 20s, I guess about 22 or 23, I met my wife I'm with now, and I felt like I really needed to get some answers to my spiritual questions, because we were going to have kids and have a family. Then I needed to get answers to those questions, and I think you know where it goes from there. You don't really find answers, you just find more questions, and it's sort of a snowball effect.
So how are you? If you don't mind a personal question, what's your relationship like with your family now? I mean, are you the demon possessed? You're the black sheep of the family now. They don't talk to you, or are they just constantly praying for you whenever you come over for dinner?
Well, luckily they don't pray for me in front of me, but they tell me all the time that they pray for me. That's mainly my grandparents. My parents. My dad. I guess he just doesn't have a good memory, because he'll ask me, once a week, now what is it you believe again? We ride to work together, we carpool, and he and I'll have to go through the whole spiel, and after about 2 minutes into my explaining, he zones out, and then he forgets what I told him, and he doesn't hear anything after that, and then he'll ask me again the next week, and it doesn't seem to bother him so much. My mom, on the other hand, she just quit talking about it, because I guess growing up she was kind of like my spiritual go-to person. If I had a question about the Bible or God or whatever, I would go to her. And so when I started going through my deconversion, I was sort of dragging her into it with me. And she got to a point where she was just like, didn't want to talk about it at all anymore. She didn't like where, I guess the evidence was kind of pointing.
It was upsetting for her a little bit.
Yeah, just don't, let's not talk about this anymore.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And but other than that, my family's they're still good to me, and I can appreciate that. My grandfather, he's still, even though he thinks I'm going to hell, he's still good to me.
Well, that's good. That's good to know.
And my wife is very supportive also, so it's not like it affected anything with my marriage. My wife is very open-minded and very supporting of whatever I come to.
Is she still consider herself a Christian and go to church and all that?
My wife?
Yeah.
No, no.
Oh,
Actually, she wasn't raised in church.
oh, okay.
When we met, she would have said, if you ask her, "Are you a Christian?" She would say, "Yeah," just quite kind of a nominal Christian, I guess.
Right.
And so it really didn't take that much uh, showing to her certain things that I thought were kind of might be a stumbling block to a believer for her to say, "Yeah, that probably isn't true," or
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I had when my daughter was still young. For a while, we lived uncomfortably close to my mother-in-law, and she was
Is there any other way?
no, and she was and my mother-in-law is a very religious, Bible believing, just like you did when you were younger. Goes to church 3 times a week, prayer meetings, whatever. And so there was this period where where my daughter would be in the house and I was an atheist and she knew this. She kind of understood it. She was young, but then of course she would go spend a weekend at grandma's house. Oh, and I was like, oh God, here we go. Because then, Grandma would take every minute of that blessed weekend to give her Bible tracts, take her to prayer meetings, to church, to get as much of that doctrine in her as she kind of could in 2 days. And then, she'd come back confused, because she loved Grandma, but she loved her daddy too, and she didn't know what to do. So, and I don't know. Press, what's your story?
Prescott, yeah.
Well, I'm 50 years old, so there's no short end to this. I was raised in a Pentecostal fundamentalist church in the east coast of Canada, so we were like 20 years behind everybody else in North America way back then. This would be like in the 60s and 70s, so long before internet and all that. Anyway,
is this like Anne of Green Gables' story? You're up on Prince Edward Island, and
Green Gables right across the water from us.
Oh, okay.
So for us it was church on Sunday morning, Sunday night. We went on Tuesday because church, I guess, didn't hold as much on us, so we need that extra Bible study in the middle of the week on Tuesday instead of Wednesday. And it was a very important part of my life growing up. Saved when I was 8, baptized when I was 10, spoke in tongues when I was 12. I have 3 brothers. They're all still Christians and married to Christian wives and got Christian kids and got a Christian dad. And my mom passed away about 1.5 years ago from Alzheimer's, and probably had a closer relationship with her anyway. And she went from, she grew up in a Baptist church, so when she married a Pentecostal, it meant some really kind of, for her, bending her way of looking at things, even though the people she was now hanging around with didn't bend at all about how they look at things. So I think that probably rubbed off on me a bit, being a little more flexible and tolerant. But I still had my own wackiness to deal with. Anyway, by the time I was about 33 years old, started somebody that I had led to the Lord, would have been the lingo that I used then, was reading through the book of Romans as I had encouraged them to do, and in doing so they came across this text about keeping the law, and he insisted that this meant we were supposed to follow the law, and he wanted to know what the law was. So I said, well, actually, you're misreading that. What that really means is you don't have to follow the law. And he fought with me on this until finally he changed my mind. And I realized, yeah, it is kind of there, isn't it? And then suddenly when I began to understand kind of the New Testament as a possible kind of post-Hebrew Scriptures extension, which had to run consistent with the Old Testament instead of actually contrary to the Old Testament, suddenly I started seeing things in the New Testament that I never saw before that caused me to rethink practically every dogma, every belief that I had been taught and raised on, and that was about, for me, that was about reconciling kind of an internal conflict in the Christian Bible between the Old Testament and the New Testament. So reconciling that, as I continued on in my journey over the last number of years, started dealing probably more with the question of exclusivity, claims of the Hebrew monotheistic God versus, a greater, I guess, kind of universal idea of God, that God kind of, if he created the whole earth, then it only stands to reason that all people would have reflected some idea or some identity of that creation, and it would emerge in their religious ideas. And one of the themes that comes out of that, out of most religious ideas, is the idea of how morality is born out of how we treat other people, is birthed in how, or is understood in how we ourselves want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, from that you also discover that the atheist who says that we can have morality without God, which is often argued by religionists, that it's an impossibility, it actually, you realize that it is a possibility if you believe that we can figure out what is offensive to ourselves. Because if we can, then we've discovered morality.
Yeah. Interesting story. Yeah, morality is one of my. Yeah, well, we all have the same topics we like, right? Anything morality, free will, or Calvinism. Yeah, I'll go anywhere. But
I had a question before Karlton, and I wanted to address you with this question as well. I haven't had a chance to, but maybe just for Jordan, Karlton, Prescott. So what would you say was the straw or two straws that broke the camel back for you, to really rethink things?
I can do that if nobody minds.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite questions. For me, there's always this question. I think when I get asked this by Christians, there's sort of this implication, or sometimes it's explicit, that there must have been some terrible disaster that occurred in my life, some terrible tragedy that made me leave God. And that was not the case. I was like Prescott. Yeah, I became a born again Christian at 14. I was raised before that in a Lutheran church, but after that I became I started off with Independent Baptist, then went to an Evangelical, then ended up in a Pentecostal church. So I made the whole route for about 25 years. But during that time, the thing that I guess I got the most out of was I was involved in apologetics, in particular witnessing to Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses. So I did a lot of reading, Walter Martin, Kingdom of the Cult, Kingdom of the Occult, a lot of Francis Schaeffer, a lot of, everybody knows the list of Christian philosophers. And in doing that, it meant that I had to be able to make sound logical arguments when I was dealing with Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons in terms of how to interpret and how to understand the Bible and how to read the Bible and what it really said. So it was sort of holding their feet to the fire. And I think ultimately, over a course of years, I realized that while I was very good at pinning them down, that I myself never let the idea of did God really exist, never got on the chopping block. I never actually addressed that or allowed myself to address it. That sort of became my default assumption, and I, when it did creep up, I pushed it to the back and then just moved on with everything else. Because I think in Christianity, at least for me, everything was logical as long as we had that assumption that God was there. But once that got called into question, it's sort of like the first domino, and then everything else sort of falls apart. So anyway, to try and shorten this, so there was a period that I went through where it kept just resurfacing. I just couldn't shove it down anymore. I knew it was there. I was aware of it consciously. It bothered me that I wasn't addressing it. So over 2 or 3 years, I started to address it, started to look at it, started looking at the arguments, for God's existence. Why do we believe that God is there? that it probably took, I would say, about 3 or 4 years, maybe a little bit longer, for me to sort of come to the realization for myself that I didn't think there was really any sufficient evidence for that to support that belief. That was the intellectual extraction. The social extraction was much more painful and took a lot longer because my entire identity was tied up in the church, with Christians, with family, with Bible study, with everything. And of course, well-meaning as a lot of my friends were, they didn't make that easy on me. Leaving, and so, but that was mine. So there wasn't like one big thing or two big things. I think I finally just came to the realization that to me it doesn't seem reasonable to assume that a God must be responsible for all these things simply because we may not understand certain things at this point in time. That doesn't justify jumping across that cavern, so to speak. And I think kind of what Prescott said too. I think that I found that a lot of the things that I had that were good things, my morals, my ethics, they didn't vanish in a puff of smoke when I left God. Nothing happened. My house didn't blow up or catch fire or anything like that. Life just went on, and a lot of the stuff that I think had become baggage, whether it was intellectual baggage or emotional baggage, over the years, fell by the wayside. It doesn't mean I don't have my own from other areas that I'm still dragging along and clutching too desperately.
Well, it's good baggage.
But the world, you're right, it's good baggage. That's my baggage.
Just to follow up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, sure.
Yeah, sure. And I guess Jordan and Prescott, if they want to add anything to this too. Well, I have a couple. Did you? I mean, for me, part of my deconversion, I went through a period of anger. I'm wondering, and I find this as a common thread, because in a way you feel like you got duped, all these years and brainwashed, and so there was a period of like anger. So, I would come out aggressive. The things I was learning come out aggressive towards Christians, and that, looking back, that was wrong. So I'm wondering if that was something you went through as well, and also, did you just jump from being a Christian to an atheist? Did you have any period of like deism or agnosticism?
Okay. Well, the anger, that's interesting. No, I didn't experience the anger, but I am experiencing it now. And by that I mean, no. By that I mean when I made the change, when I left Christianity, I think it's like that old adage about something you don't know what you don't know. I didn't realize what I had lost. I didn't realize the time that I had spent and given to this endeavor that could have been directed elsewhere. So it took 10 or 15 years until I actually had a chance to think about it and realize, I'm 60 now, and then now I think about it, and I think, all that time when I was probably at my most productive, from my mid-teens until my mid or late 30s, was basically, it wasn't a law. I mean, there was a lot of good things. I don't mean to imply that, those years were useless. I just mean that I think I did invest a lot of time and a lot of energy in something that ultimately could have been better spent somewhere else. So, yeah, I'm not sure that I have anger per se, just maybe regret might be a better word. The other one, though, was, and I'm sorry, what was the second? You had a second part to that, and I forgot.
Did you go through any, like, a period of deism or agnosticism?
Oh, yeah. Okay, I guess I'm live, but that's okay. I'll fess up here. I tried to be a Wiccan for a week. That's as long as that lasted. It was one freaking meeting. I went, these guys are freaking loony birds. I'm out of here. But I tried it for a week. I did it for a week. It was like when I was a teenager and I smoked for a week. I was like, okay, I'm done with that. So
you were a weak Wiccan. I
was a weak Wiccan for a week, 7-day Wiccan. And there was that. And then let's see, what else did I do? I don't think I really knew or understood about the concept of deism per se. So no, they're agnostic. Yes and no, and I'm saying yes and no because I'm not sure that I changed, but I think my understanding of the definition of agnostic has changed, which has put me in a different bucket. I think I would have said then, and I would say the same thing now, that by being an atheist, I'm not making some sort of an absolute claim that I know that God cannot possibly exist, that there's no God. I think that is going out on the same limb as saying that he does exist. So all I'm really, all I'm really saying now is that there's just no evidence to justify making that leap. And so I think I called myself an agnostic for a while because I was I sort of had agnostic and atheism on rungs, like rungs on a ladder, with one being more severe than the other. But now I've sort of changed my view on that. And I think that when I think of agnosticism, I guess to me it's more like a weak atheism. I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those word things. It depends. If you ask 10 people, you get 10 different definitions of what the differences are. Yeah. So no, that's not it. And I should say this. I'm on the spot here, but I think there are just as many stupid atheists as there are stupid Christians. I don't think anybody's got a corner on that market. I've seen them. I've heard some arguments by atheists on Google, and I'm like, oh my freaking God! Especially when they're talking about Christianity. I said, would you guys pick up a Bible, please, and at least learn what the hell it is you're criticizing and get the theology right before you try and stomp all over it?
Yes.
You sound like freaking idiots, even to the atheists. And I'm like,
yes, stupidity is definitely a universal thing.
Well, I do, and I find myself a lot of times going in hangouts, putting on my Christian hat, because somebody needs to. Let's if we're gonna disagree with the theology, that's fine, but let's get it right, okay? Let's because I think the problem is just that people on both sides don't think about the implications of the things that they say they believe. They don't drill down. They do it at a surface level. Well, I'm pro-life, or I'm pro-choice, or I'm whatever it is, and they don't actually think about what that means in terms of all their other beliefs.
If I may, Karlton, before we get into that, because I
don't want to go there. I didn't mean that.
Well, but I love listening to you talk, but sometimes it just gets a little too long.
I can't imagine.
But I see Jordan is yawning, and he might be getting tired.
I'm shutting up. All right, I'm going to get a soda. You guys talk for a bit here. I'm good, but I'm an old guy. You got to tell me to shut up.
Maybe you want to hear whatever Jordan's perspective. But Jordan, before you go fall asleep on us.
I wasn't yawning.
What was the straw for you? Was there a straw or two that broke the Christian camel back for you?
Well, I wasn't yawning out of boredom. I usually go to bed about 9 o'clock, so this is over 2 hours past my bedtime.
oh no, I didn't say that. Yeah, I kind of figured it was kind of late and everything. Yeah.
It's midnight here, so.
Yeah. I guess really it was just one straw that broke the camel's back for me, and just in a simplified way of saying it, I came to believe that there was evidence showing that Jesus did not bring necessarily new revelation about the afterlife or what happens when you die, but instead he was a child of his time, and he believed in the things that were popular when he was a child, and the he would have been taught by his parents and his peers, and when I saw that he wasn't necessarily a prophet of these things, but he just believed in everything that surrounded him, that's when I sort of gave up on him being the Messiah. And I had already given up on him being God or part of a Trinity or anything like that, so it was like, okay, now all I'm left with is just this Messiah, and now he's wrong about all this, or probably wrong, so I don't really see what is left to hold on to after you've given up biblical inerrancy, and you don't really have much of a foundation, I guess.
It's kind of funny that the only record of, Jesus had certainly if he was the Son of God, had the capability of writing things down, and the only thing that we have written down is a few words on sand. Over a woman caught in adultery. I think that'd be pretty important to remember.
Is Prescott freezing, or is that my computer?
No, he's freezing on mine too. He's still frozen.
Is it true that the adultery story that was put in there many years later? Is that something that might have actually happened?
Well, it could have been something that happened, but the reason most don't think it was is just because it wasn't originally in John's gospel, or at least the best that they can tell. Um, you can look at let's see. Let's look at my Nessel Allen, and I'll tell you which codices have it and which ones don't.
Prescott, I'm sorry. Prescott, I think you have to reload because you're frozen over here and Jordan's got you frozen. If you hear me. Sorry, I forgot to welcome Severus to the room. What's up, man?
Not much. Just saw your invite like 20 minutes ago.
Well, thanks for stopping by.
I was kind of wondering if you guys were still up.
Yeah, we started, well, I started a little after 9 at the clock. That's Eastern time, U.S. So, I mean, it's only 11 now, so you know how these things can go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been in them lasting all night, so.
Well, hopefully Prescott will get back in here. Yeah, Karlton, Jordan's looking up something for us. We're talking about the story of the adulterer in John and being later put in there afterwards, or not even being in the original John, the Gospel of John.
Yeah.
Jordan's looking up.
Yeah,
something.
I think it says, if I'm understanding the apparatus correctly, omitted from P66 and P75, Codex Aleph, which is Sinaiticus, Alexandrinus, B, that's Vaticanus, C, that's Codex Ephraemi, heck, Washingtonensis, pretty much everything except the later ones. So yeah, that would be why this is pretty much universally accepted as being a later edition, and why I guess most would say it probably didn't happen. But for me, I would say it has just as much, or almost as much, credibility as anything else in the gospel. I mean, I don't see any reason, just because it wasn't originally in there, it was still put in there pretty early. And I don't think that the author John himself is writing too close to the events, so oral tradition, maybe, if it did happen. Just guessing.
And am I correct? Is it the Codex Sinaiticus? Is that the earliest full like New Testament we have, like in the 300s?
Well, it's considered the oldest complete New Testament. Yes, it's not the oldest. Certainly, it's not the oldest manuscript we have, but it's the oldest that's complete. It's the oldest complete Bible. It has the vast majority of the Old Testament and Old Testament Apocrypha, and the as far as the New Testament Apocrypha goes, it has the Epistle of Barnabas, and I think it has the Shepherd, also the Shepherd of Hermas.
Yeah, I find it interesting. I mean, the first 300 years of Christianity, you know, they were back and forth. The whole idea of who or what Jesus was, I mean, ideas were going all over the place for 300 years. You know, you had Gnostic writings too, you know, when you go in a couple hundred years afterwards. And so you had all these different ideas, and then from what I'm seeing, it wasn't until the Council of Nicaea came about, and they would say, "Hey, we got to put these things down in some kind of, you know, format, you know, make it formal." And
well, what apologists generally do is they're quick to point out, well, there's no evidence of this Gnosticism until the 2nd century. So anything that's Gnostic, this is at the very earliest, you know, probably mid or late 2nd century. And so that wasn't an early Christology, and so that shouldn't even be brought up basically in the discussion. Me personally, I think there's some evidence in the New Testament, most definitely of some Docetists who may have well been Gnostic, and well, that's why it says in the Johannine epistles about, you must confess that Jesus came in the flesh. Well, the reason that was so important is because there were some people that said he didn't come in the flesh. He came, and if you walked on the sand, he wouldn't leave footprints. He just seemed to be real,
like an angelic apparition.
Yeah, yeah. But I think that an adoptionist Christology, I think that's right there in the very beginning too. I mean, I think we can see that with the use of the aorist evdokisa in the baptismal formula in Mark chapter 1 when Jesus is baptized, which was used by Matthew and Luke. I'm surprised they didn't change it to the present. Evdoko. But it's almost as if what he's saying is, you're my beloved son, in su evdokisa, in you I have been well pleased. So it's like he's adopting him at his baptism. He's saying, I've been well pleased with you, so therefore you're my son. So I think, and I mean that's just one shred of evidence in the New Testament. I think that there's strong evidence for an adoptionistic Christology as well as docetic within the first century. But people will try to say that, well, there was no Gnostic or anything like that, ideas floating around. That all came much, 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 much later. But who knows, really?
Well,
Now, first chapter of... I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Prescott.
I was going to say, in the first chapter of Romans, even Paul doesn't speak of Christ as, as having divine origins. He actually says, as to his human descendancy, he is the son of David. And while I know that modern apologists will try to claim that this is through Mary, they're actually inventing things, because if you read either nativity story, Matthew or Luke, as different as they are from each other, and even the genealogical problems, they both claim that those genealogies are the genealogy of his father, Joseph, and has nothing to do with Mary. So when Paul is referring to him as being descended from David, he is actually saying this person was a human being, and he nowhere in all of Paul's writings does he ever make any reference to virgin births or divinely begotten anything. So,
well, wouldn't you say that theologically, though, the reason for the virgin birth was simply so that was to get out from under the idea of Jesus inheriting Adam's sinful nature?
Well, no, because someone might use that reasoning, and because I know that I've heard that. The problem with that is that you still have to deal with Mary.
Yes, I agree.
I would agree there too. But they always seem to say it's always, the right comes from the male side.
Well, the Catholic Church though dealt with that with the Immaculate Conception. That's the whole point of the Immaculate Conception.
Right.
Was to deal with the sin nature that Mary would have passed on to Jesus, so that at that point at some point in her conception, that it was bestowed on her this special gift of having this kind of sinless nature.
Right.
And
it becomes a slippery slope.
What's that?
It becomes a slippery slope now, because now you have to deal with Mary's parents.
Well, that's the problem that I have with people that are not Catholic, that attack that same thing. It's like, they'll say, well, it was, because they'll say the sinful nature of Adam passes through the male line, and you're like, well, how exactly? Give me the technical. How does it pass through the male line? Well, typically you end up with a conversation that ends up with, well, genetics. Well, that makes the problem worse, because now obviously Mary has half of her father's genes. So if it passes through the genome, then Mary's going to pass on the male, the sinful nature as easily as Joseph did. But then if you don't want to go to a immaculate conception as far as Mary goes, then you're kind of SOL there. You're out on a limb.
Yeah.
Poor Jesus. We're trying so hard to make him work.
Well, speaking of, do you guys, you believe a guy, and try to keep this short, Carl.
Oh, bite me. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be nice. I'm an atheist. Okay. No,
I'm kind of playing like radio announcer here. I just ask the questions.
that's okay.
Tiny atheists were bitter
Ball
underneath.
rolling, you know. You know what I'm saying. But how do you guys feel? Do you think a person named Jesus actually existed?
Okay, can I go first?
Yeah, we'll get you out of the way.
Okay. All right. Okay.
We're putting you on a timer.
I'll do my best.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm turning over the sand now.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
Wow, awesome. Okay. You do believe? Okay. I'm afraid to ask why, but
I can't do that in one word. I don't think there's. I mean, I don't.
There's
can't help yourself.
there's a difference between believing that Jesus existed and believing that all the things that are written about him are his story.
Right.
I think if we ask Karlton, do you believe that all the stories in the gospel are true? He's going to say no. Sorry,
No.
I didn't speak for you, Karlton. But
No. Yes.
Jordan, do you think Jesus, the man, existed?
Yeah, right now I'm still convinced that he did. I think our strongest evidence is in Galatians, where Paul just sort of off the cuff talks about Jesus' brothers, and in fact he does it in an instance where if he was in the mood to lie, he probably should have, because his whole objective in Galatians is to talk about how he is an authority and how he is separate from the apostles. He's not underneath the apostles. And he's basically like, listen, I got my authority from God. I didn't talk to nobody, well, except for the Lord's brother, James. I did talk to him. I got to tell the truth. So it's like, well, why would he make that up? I'm still convinced that this James, the brother of the Lord, was apparently a biological brother of Jesus, and therefore Jesus had to exist. And I don't know that we can know anything about Jesus, but I think that this dude did exist.
But I think outside the Bible, though, do we have any evidence for Jesus' existence?
I don't think any.
Yeah, that's my theory. I mean, I haven't seen any extra biblical contemporary evidence for this person named Jesus. But Prescott, do you think? I'm sorry.
you mean something that it would be contemporary to Jesus, that you could actually point to as any kind of verification. Because that's actually what the James Oswery argument was all about here. The bone box that they had found, that were arguing as to whether the inscription on it says, James, the brother of Jesus, and what they were arguing was whether or not the inscription that was carved in after the name James was in fact later, because that would be something contemporary to Jesus that would actually validate whether or not he actually existed. And up here in Canada, David Maines, who is a known televangelist here, and certainly I think respected a bit, because he's probably one of the few that haven't been caught in scandals. He was practically in tears when they brought the James Oswery to the Royal Ontario Museum for viewing. He was practically in tears because this was, for him, irrefutable proof that Jesus actually did exist. And so that, I think, is really your question, correct? Is there anything historically?
Yeah, I guess historically written. Well, I guess initially my question was, whether you believe it existed or not. So, are you saying that, like, based on these actuaries, you think a person named Jesus existed? Do you think this is sufficient evidence?
Well, no, because I think that the scholars are divided on whether or not this is authentic. So it's not something that is actually, they have not been able to authenticate this. But I'm saying that was the only example and why it created so much interest in the scholarly community was because there's absolutely no proof that Jesus existed, at least based on anything that would be contemporary with Jesus. Only after, and as you move past that time period, would you find any references to Jesus, and at that, they seem to be, they started out as a collection of stories attributed to him, having done things that he did or said.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I don't know what the norm was back then, but I mean, I would guess something within a 10-year period after the supposed, death and resurrection of Jesus, of some kind of writing there would, I guess I would consider contemporary, unless my definition is wrong.
I got a theory on this if you want to hear it.
Sure.
Yeah, we haven't heard from you. Go ahead, shoot.
I believe that he never really existed. I think when the Romans came together, they put the book together as some form of maybe control. I don't want to say control. Some form of separation.
It's Barnone back. He's back in another iteration.
Reincarnation is true.
Well, you have like legates and senators and stuff worshiping like Invictus at the same time that all the masses are worshiping Jesus. And I mean, that just seems confusing to me. I believe that probably, since the Jews of the time kept pretty good records, that they don't mention him, considering there's this big uprising with the Christians. I don't think there's any evidence for him. I think they collected some stories that were taken from other cultures and then slapped Jesus' name on them.
Interestingly, I put a link out there on the right. It's a blog post for an old blog of mine, but it's an intro to a story by an author named Chaim Jacobi, who is a Talmudic scholar, and he tries to make the case. This is a long preview to the book, but in the book he tries to make the case that he believes, for example, that Paul was actually not a Pharisee, but was rather a Sadducee, based on all the writings in the New Testament and the relationships that he claims to have had, and that Jesus actually and his followers were actually more likely to be Pharisees.
Yeah.
So
that actually makes sense, because the Sadducees were in charge of the temple, and a lot of Paul's early activities were as kind of their messenger boy, running here and there for the temple.
Yeah.
That's why that's when he got knocked off his ass, or on his ass, or whatever it was, on his way to Damascus, that he was actually on an errand for the temple, and that was controlled by the Sadducees. He wasn't sent by the Pharisees.
Yeah.
Well, because actually that they would have had no interest in putting down this upstart group anyway, because even Gamaliel, who was supposed to have been the senior rabbi at the time, Gamaliel ordered them to leave them alone. So this was, I would agree with that.
Yeah, but I just brought that up only in the interest of, was Jesus a real person? Even here now we're looking at a Talmudic scholar who doesn't have a Christian axe to grind, certainly. Seems to treat Jesus as a historical individual.
Well, actually, there is in the Talmudic literature, they do talk about that, because they actually speak of him as a historical figure. This wouldn't have been kind of a contemporary reference. This would have been probably in the early in the 2nd century, mm-hmm. where they actually say that he was born to a woman of ill repute. Which was a polite way of, well, we know it's a polite.
We know, yeah. She was a Republican.
Yeah, exactly. I'm from Canada, so
I know. I that's why I hesitated when I started saying. I'm like, wait, I need to come up with a different analogy.
but that's actually to me that's actually, like, again, they didn't have any problem writing this down. So they weren't obsessed with the idea of whether or not he existed. In their minds, it was fine for them to think of him as an historical figure. And so I'm not really, don't put my nose out of joint over that question the way I've heard some people try to explain away why he did not exist, because at the end of the day, it's really not a question of whether he existed or not. It's a question of whether the story that we have in the New Testament is really based on true life events in the life of that person.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
means more significant.
Yeah, exactly. You can't demonstrably prove that he didn't exist, nor probably can you do the opposite. And even if you could prove that he existed, you're into, so what? So did thousands of other people. It doesn't impinge Christianity or support it one way or the other.
So now you're agnostic about God and you're agnostic about Christ.
You're going to go on my list. I'm writing you down. Yeah, I know. I just can't make a decision anymore. I'm going to go back to my book.
I'm going back to writing blog posts.
I found this cool book. I got it's oops, sorry. Actually, this is just I went out and got this book after too many discussions with Osmandius. But it's Nigel Warburton's. It's called The Little History of Philosophy. But it's really great. It starts with Socrates and he goes to like Pete Singer and current day philosophers. And it does like 3 or 4 pages on each one. Just kind of gives you a summary of their position and what the next guy thought, and kind of connects the dots for you.
Philosophy for dummies, right?
That's pretty much what it is. Yes. But it's a good read. Well, for whatever that's worth. I'm trying to bone up on my philosophy a little bit. I got all the arguments down. I'm just trying to figure out who they belong to.
I think Cerberus and Jordan were trying to get in there.
I'm sorry. Well, I got to go anyway, guys. It's 11:40 here, so I'm going to get a little sleep tonight. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you all. I hope to see you all again.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Bye, man. You have a great night.
Thank you.
I had a question for Cerberus. The theory you were putting forth, is that basically in line with Joseph Atwill? I think it's Joseph Atwill wrote that book about the
Caesar's Messiah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, kind of, sort of. I've never read Jesus' Messiah. I've only heard people talk about it.
Okay.
So I can't say for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just trying to make sure I understood you. One of the problems I see with that view is that some objections that aren't answered is in the language of the New Testament itself. Well, first of all, the structure of the Gospels. Why would you even have a synoptic problem if they were trying to just basically make something up? Why would they repeat it so many times and make it look like, okay, there was originally one, and then Matthew and Luke, used Mark clearly, and then it's like Goodacre thinks that maybe Luke also used Matthew, or like most scholars think maybe there was this other verse which they call Q. Why would you have that literary dependency if it was basically just all made up by Romans?
They're passed off as separate eyewitness accounts. I think in a pre-scientific world that would be what you would do, is bring together as many writings that said the same thing as possible.
Okay. Well, for me, they still say such different things that theory doesn't seem to really be plausible. Mark is so incredibly different from John. It's almost like, heck, that's one of the main reasons I'm not even a believer anymore. It's like they did a terrible job if they were trying to say the same thing.
Yeah, but you don't suspect eyewitnesses to degree 100% anyway.
Well, I think what Jordan might be alluding to is that to actually think through a conspiracy well enough, like all they really had to do was really present one book as the story to follow, and not even include the rest. Just do what they did with the Gnostic Gospels or any other writings out there, and just exclude them. Incidentally, in Jewish law, when we read the text in the Torah about the testimony of two witnesses must agree in order to accept them or to believe them. And one of the interesting things about that is that in the oral tradition, it's actually, if two testimonies actually perfectly agree with each other, you're to believe that the two conspired, because essentially you have a rehearsed testimony. So despite what the written text says about the two testimonies must agree, the oral tradition actually says that no, we can't have that, which is kind of what we have with the Gospels, is we have actually several different testimonies that don't agree. So I guess in the written that's not good, but in the oral tradition it's okay.
I mean, I think it falls right in the middle, like where you would want it to. Like, they disagree enough, but they don't disagree so much that you would discount them.
Right, but that it does make it almost makes it like a really well, and maybe that's the point. It's a well executed plot that was just. There was just enough disagreement that it addresses the concern about conspiracy, but enough agreement or enough disagreement. No, I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, go ahead. Go ahead, Jordan.
I think well, for me, it's just a huge leap to try to believe that that they. Now, let me make sure I'm understanding you. You think that the Romans, basically, in summary, wanted to invent a religion to get these Jews to worship a man, right?
Well, not so much. I mean, the stories were around before, right? I think they turned it into something bigger than it was. But you got all these different books separated out to all these little microcosms of culture. And that's when I think that's how the stories changed a lot, and then they brought the stories together.
Okay.
Okay. I think he's just mythology, but my whole premise is solely based off of you have Constantine with statues of Invictus, Tim talking about Invictus. You have other legates and senators worshiping Invictus. You know, it's weird that they'd be doing that after they put the book together.
Okay. Now, when do you think that these Gospels were written?
I would say somewhere between 100 and 300.
Okay.
So any fragments that they claim to have found in the first century would be problematic to that, right?
Well, to my estimation, I guess.
Yeah. No. Well, yeah. You're right. Yeah.
A couple things here. I think what we have Mark dated the earliest around 65 A.D. And the other thing is, if like you're saying, Prescott, you want to get this, you want to get these two people to conspire. You want them to make up this story. Well, should I say this? If it was the Romans who wanted to use Jesus and the Gospels to control the masses, now and also to be in line with Jewish lore, as you say, they can't have the exact same story. That I would think that would mean they would have to have some kind of Jewish consults as well. Then the Jews would have to be in on this conspiracy as well, to tell the Romans, yeah, this is how it is in our text. If you're gonna have to put this story together, so they would have to be involved in the conspiracy as well.
Well, you just need a learned person, but don't forget. I mean, we know there was a conspiring. We just don't know if it was sinister.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Christianity was an inside job.
Well, I think the other part of all of this too is we can never underestimate the power of belief. I don't think that there was anything that that annoyed some of my friends in the, because I became involved in the Noahide movement, and so that necessarily meant a close intimacy with, studying Torah and the oral tradition, not just from a written perspective. And the more that I came to appreciate the oral tradition, the more I began to see consistency between, and this is kind of the irony, consistency between a lot of the information that was in the New Testament that actually fit well with the oral telling or the oral tradition in Judaism. That if you don't know that tradition and you read the New Testament as a fundamentalist, then you would have to conclude that there's a problem between the Old and New Testament, which is what I ran into as a fundamentalist. As I began to study the oral tradition more, then I had less of a problem with the New Testament, because many of the elements in the New Testament that were problematic before were actually addressed by the oral tradition, which was kind of ironic, I think. I think that's ironic. Because now I should have less of a problem with the New Testament for that reason, except for that it became a New Testament that was actually about a Jewish event or a Jewish movement in the first century, and that it wasn't about a Christian movement or some kind of a new Christian religion. That really didn't emerge until after the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. Prior to that, the Jews were front and center in the movement. Even the name that was given to them, they referred to themselves as the Way. Well, the Way was actually the original name of Torah Judaism back when they were wandering in the desert. So this was kind of like how a group today might refer to themselves as the Pentecostals, because it refers to Acts chapter 2, and they want to reference that historical moment in the same way that this group did, because they wanted to see themselves as being more authentic in their Jewish faith and in their Jewish practice than their contemporaries, who were being seduced by money and by the Romans and by power and all the rest of it. So anyway, so
yeah. I remember you. Are you still Noahide?
According to them, I am, and the reason the reason why I say that is because it's kind of that question of who's a Jew? Well, anyone who's not a Gentile. Well, who's a Gentile? Well, anyone who's not a Jew.
Okay.
If technically speaking, anyone who is not a Jew is a Noahide. So if you're not Jewish, then you're a Noahide too, whether you realize it or not. So I guess I could honestly answer that question and say, yes, I am still a Noahide, but then I guess I always was, according to their rules.
Jews always trying to put you in a box.
Well, they would argue that it's really us who are trying to put them in the box.
Now, do you go to temple on Saturday? Do you is there any kind of ritual that you follow with the Noahide?
Oh, okay. Well, so I would say that probably I fall under I've always fallen under the category simply because there's no Jewish community nearby. Therefore, there is no temple or synagogue or anything like that to attend.
Are we getting some background on who is that? Oh, okay. Prescott, do you remember a gentleman named Kitten Catton?
Yeah, John.
Yeah, I think that's how. Yeah, okay. Well, I haven't seen or heard any videos from him. Have you keep in touch with him at all?
No, I over the since not for the last 5-6 years, spent most of my time helping my dad look after my mom. So I really, never really stayed in touch with anyone really.
Okay. All right.
Maybe that's why I've fallen into crepitude and backslidden. Good thing that Fundamentalist is not in this room tonight, or I'd be heading to hell with you.
There was another gentleman I was hoping to come in here, Idol Smasher. He's a Noahide, and man, you guys probably would have had a nice conversation. But I mean, if you're interested, I think he's in my circles or something like that, or if you want to friend him or whatever, and so. Well, Noahide or something like that. I think you have a. Is there an issue with your mic there, Prescott? Oh.
Well, I don't know.
You're good now. I'm sorry. You're good now.
No. I think I have a connection problem here. So. Like right there. Oh, no. I think somebody's still there.
Yeah, you're coming in very low.
I'm coming in low?
It kind of sounds like you're having a fight with radio static.
Yeah, my connection might go down here, in which case I have to wait for about 4 minutes and then go back to it.
Oh, that's what you get for socialist internet service.
It's not so bad here, but it really sucks when I'm downloading the phone. Okay, nobody heard that, right?
No, we just heard this right now.
Yeah.
Oh. Wow. There must be a God. He cut that out perfectly.
Are you moving around your Are you on a laptop or something? I think it's when you move it around.
Yeah, I am on a laptop. Like, is the volume actually, or is it just sound like the connection is breaking up?
Right there, you're good. Now you sounded good right there.
I won't move.
Okay, where were we at?
Oh, I was just saying that everything was fine with this connection, except for when it breaks up, it messes with my my pornography. So.
Oh.
It was meant to irritate.
It is.
It would draw out the fundamentalists. Any fundamentalist who was hiding in the group would immediately emerge.
Oh boy.
It's kind of like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and they got the little the detective is going around tapping on the wall.
Mm. Yeah.
The tune can't resist responding to a shave and a haircut.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Well, I guess
it's a long way for a joke, but I'll go the distance sometimes.
Hey man, I haven't seen that movie in such a really long time. It went right over my head.
I don't know. Maybe here's something I'll just throw out there. I guess because I know me and Jordan, we spoke about this about a week or so ago. I'm more of I got more of an Eastern thought now. I started reading things more towards a Zen thought. Things like Alan Watts and Eckhart Tolle, the Tao Te Ching, and I'm finding that this kind of philosophy, or I guess, and I'm still really very baby steps here, trying to encompass everything. Never mind trying to understand when you're reading about certain Eastern philosophers and masters and stuff to getting their names straight. God, it gets so crazy. But I guess basically it's just
try 3,000 years of Jewish rabbis.
Yeah.
You got it easy.
I'm just happy you didn't say Confucius.
I'm sure he has some cool thoughts there.
He is a recipe for totalitarianism.
Okay.
Just
I guess, and it becomes difficult in some of these chats sometimes, though. But to live, I guess my purpose for me, I'm finding more to just live in the present moment. I guess that's pretty much it. Just things are just what they are, accept them what they are, and this will be the minimizing of your suffering, pretty much. Kind of take things as it comes, go with the flow. Be like the water on the rocks.
Turn the other cheek. Yeah.
you went all
Well,
Buddhist on us. Wait,
but like I was talking earlier. I had me and Chris were talking when it was just me and him in the room earlier, and we were talking about how like everything is frequency, vibration, light, sound, and even the earth supposedly is at a certain frequency of vibration, and that we have lost as a culture our connectiveness to nature, pretty much like maybe like the native Indians or something like that. And for me today, which was a nice experience, I don't know if you want to call it spiritual, whatever, but me and my wife were in the backyard, telling her about this stuff, and one of the things was about people that what we don't do usually is just walk barefoot in the grass, on the dirt, and be connected to the earth. That there's supposedly some kind of energy, or it's supposed to be very beneficial to your body just as much as sunlight would be. So here we are. I said, let's kick off our shoes and walk in the wet grass, in the yard, and just it was cool, and we just had a sun shower. The sun is setting, and just to be feel that connectedness to one another and nature. To me, that's more of the spiritual experience for me now.
wow. I am the complete opposite direction. As soon as they find a robot body, they can put me in it.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, I'll still go walk out in the wet grass, but I'll go all Terminator 2 and everything.
So you don't feel like there's maybe there's some kind of connection we should have with nature that we
I mean, I think the closer you live in it is probably the healthier you're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Along with that.
It's funny you say that because I mean, I don't have no proof or evidence for this, but I used to live in New York City now, one of the 5 boroughs, and then when I got married in '07, moved to Pennsylvania, where now I got trees around me, grass, the air is cleaner, and it's shortly after that, within the year, my deconversion started. So I don't know if the clean air was making me think clearer, maybe. I was definitely feeling more connected that way. I don't know.
There's definitely been shown time and time again a positive. I don't really know how to put it. My brain's turning off. Positive outcome for being exposed to a lot of green and blue.
Mm.
You don't get that in the city.
Green and blue? Maybe in a club? Green water. The water's green, and the sky, I don't know if it's blue or something.
Well, that might,
I'm exaggerating.
that might explain why when you go to prison you get religion.
Yeah.
I think we just came up with something here.
A new religion.
Isn't that funny? You go to prison and find religion.
Nature, I guess. Well, I think that I've got.
There goes your connection again, Prescott.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
I hear a word, then it sounds like he's chewing on a candy bar wrapper.
Oh, really?
I got that one.
Got really.
You know what? Let me log out and then log back in and see if it improves.
Okay.
I have no idea how I'm going to do this.
See, right there sounded good. I don't know.
Oh, I was about to suggest to have him tell his kid to stop watching porn and have his wife get off Netflix. So, has anyone read this new book that's based off these two guys from Cambridge? I want to say I'm remembering that right. A Billion Wicked Thoughts. Anyone heard of that yet?
It's called A Billion Wicked Thoughts?
Yeah.
Nah. Never heard it.
They were doing a study on sexuality, and they found out the number one type of porn straight men watch is tranny porn. They're trying to explain it. Why?
They're trying to explain why the number one porn, you're saying?
Yeah, the number one search for porn on the internet by heterosexual males is tranny porn.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I mean, 'cause you got all these websites like
Hold on, let me
Pornhub,
get in.
and there's a couple other ones. Yeah,
Well, I know.
type in A Billion Wicked Thoughts.
Oh God. What section of Barnes and Nobles are you going into?
Oh no, I forget where I watched it at, but they gave a lecture somewhere that they recorded.
Oh, okay. So, is that true, Cerebus?
I wouldn't know. I was surprised.
I was shocked.
Disbelief.
I was so embarrassed.
Oh, God.
I've never Googled it, but I am heterosexual. And I have no idea what people's attractions are with transmissions.
Automatic or standard?
I always think that a stick shift is good.
They shift.
So there you go, right there. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Always go for the optimism when you can. It's always more funny.
Oh man, talk about a 180 in subjects here.
Actually, no, it's actually not.
Oh really? Okay. Religious trainees, let's do it.
I would be surprised if there are that many.
I think it's popular in South America, maybe.
So, you take any trips to South America recently?
No. I went to Romania a couple of years ago.
Oh.
That was a good trip. No, but I think in terms of like, it's probably one of the least talked about, and certainly if you come out of a Christian tradition, which I did, that there really wasn't any kind of discussion at all about sex or sexuality, apart from how terrible it was, which is why everybody couldn't wait to get married, I guess. But it's and the funny thing is that it certainly is there's certainly plenty of discussion in the Bible about the subject that is ignored, which is the reason why it's interesting to me is because the same kind of, it seems that the same kind of thing that is behind people's it's almost like the same kind of addiction that we have to faith or religion is really not that different than our addiction to sexuality or our addiction to pornography or things like that, because it's really about us believing that there's something there that is fulfilling, that is going to give us satisfaction of some sort, which we always find ourselves in kind of post-experience of questioning, well, was that really that satisfying? I mean, we know that desire is going to be there again a week later when we go to church, that there is kind of a satisfaction that comes from spiritual ecstasy and so on and so forth, but it's something that really is not long-lasting or deeply fulfilling, and it very much acts like many of the things that are characterized by what we call addictions, I guess.
I don't know, some of those addictions are awesome, I guess.
Well, they are what they are, and it just seems that when well, for instance, back in 2000, I forget what year actually, 2004, 2005, at a Promise Keepers conference, they did they took a poll of all the men that were attending there, and they asked how many men had.
Sure, you're muted. I just said the good part.
Yes, your joking really is a cover-up for your guilt. Anyway, but no, it's like 50% of the group actually acknowledged that they had accessed pornography in the previous week. If you had 50% of your congregation involved in any kind of activity that was foreboding from your religion or your church's view on what they consider to be morality, they would have all manner of what's the word I'm looking for? Interventions going on. They would have 12-step programs galore going on at the church if half their congregation was alcoholic, or if half their congregation was gambling, or if half their congregation was doing drugs or smoking or any number of things. But when half the congregation is involved in watching pornography on their computer, nobody will say a word.
And half of the other half are lying about it.
Then there's that. And by the way, I have now I have to be careful here because I realize that this is to some degree public. So
yeah, we are live. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to I had a conversation with someone who is a Christian, and that's exactly what he said to me when I had brought that statistic up. He said that those are just the half that are willing to be honest, and the other half aren't. So what was that? What was he really saying when he said that?
Yeah. Hey, how you doing? Is that Owen? Is that how you pronounce your name?
Owen.
Owen, how you doing, Owen?
I'm doing well, boys. How's everyone doing? Yes, very good.
Doing good.
It sounds like Aussie.
Irish all day, brother, please.
Oh, well, that's pretty close. Same side of the globe.
So.
Yeah, the not America. It's the not America side.
No, I can see the confusion. The far side of Europe to the far side of Asia. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
different hemisphere. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not. I'm just making fun of you, mate.
No, that doesn't bother me at all. I'm from Eastern Canada, so I know where you are at, and I do know where Australia is at. Unlike the guys south of the border from us,
Hey,
we have no idea where anything is except New York and Los Angeles. So.
When you live in America, what else do you need to know? Really, is the question.
That's right.
Fuck's sake. Dear me. So what mischief are we causing tonight, gentlemen?
Oh man, now I lost my train of thought here. Now.
We started talking about sex, and John just has not been able to kind of get back on track.
Wow.
Oh man. Okay.
I really derailed this.
Oh,
with the
I
transport
know what I wanted to say. Yeah, Prescott, you were talking about the addictions and stuff like that, and how many in the church will actually admit to sexual addictions and stuff like that. But I remember when I was going to I was going to a charismatic church, and one of the meetings, I guess it was like one of those big things going on at the time, was overcomer meetings. He used to call them, and
it was all they would never say the word other than in a list of sins.
Yeah.
Right. But you know that was really the one.
You know, it was like for men only. You know, come. You know, you can share openly. Everything's confidential, and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Whether if you're dealing with lust or alcohol and stuff. The funny thing, oh God, I'll never forget this. The funny thing is, the church had a sign outside. They had one of those marquees, and outside their building, and they were trying to advertise the meeting. So they had Overcomer Monday night, drugs and alcohol, because they didn't have enough. They didn't have enough room on the sign. They got such slack from the people on the block. What is going on here? Drugs and alcohol in the church on Monday night.
Drugs and alcohol. We're Pentecostals.
They need to put some butts in the seats.
No wonder attendance improved after that. Yes. Oh God.
Addicted to rugs. Oh, there we go. So what part of Ireland?
I'm from a place called County Wicklow, which is just a little bit south of Dublin, on the east coast.
Right.
I live in the United States now, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're back visiting home?
No, I'm in Central Florida right now.
Oh, I'm double sorry then.
Yeah, Prescott, just because you moved to the United States doesn't mean your accent changes.
It doesn't have to, Prescott.
That's what was confusing, because you didn't sound like any Floridian I ever heard of.
I make a point not to.
So
I actually quite like it in the United States, to be honest with you, I do. It's fun being the smartest person in the world.
How?
If you're Irish, you're the smartest person anywhere, aren't you?
Just about, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
So why Florida?
You know what? It could have been anywhere bloody else, to be honest with you. I just sort of there was a job opportunity in Florida for me, and I just kind of moved here for that. And then that didn't work out quite as well as I would have liked, and just sort of never moved. I made friends here, like, do you know what I mean?
I was going to say, let me suggest anywhere but Florida.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I do. Like, you know what I mean? It's not it's not roses out in Florida these days, but sure. I don't mind it too much, to be honest with you. Like, it's fine. It's, yeah. The people here kind of don't know what to do with me, which I find kind of amusing most of the time, When you're either Puerto Rican or used to dealing with Puerto Ricans, people gotta look at you like you're like, I'm like a unicorn to most people out here, like, what the fuck is this fella?
Yeah, I come from New York. People that go to Florida are old Jewish people. They'll go there to die.
Oh, dear. Yeah, that's the facts.
Oh wow, Jordan left, man. What happened? Oh, I don't know. Maybe he was tired or something. But
yeah, he's gone.
No, oh, Jordan. I thought Prescott left. My brain's messing all sorts of up.
No, it's okay. I'm still here.
I'm still here for you.
So, what next, John? What's on your mind?
Yeah, John.
Oh God, let's talk. You want to talk about Florida?
It's a short and boring conversation.
Yeah.
Well, let me. As far as you know, for a while there, Florida was like kind of booming there because of people going there to retire. Maybe this was about 10, 20 years ago. I think a lot of people now are choosing Arizona or Nevada or something like that. But I mean, how is the I mean, from what you're seeing, Owen, I don't know if you keep track of, you know, as far as the economy going down there,
Oh,
the
I
housing
do, yeah.
market. I'm hearing like the real estate market's getting like, I mean, it's getting really bad down there.
It is. It's ugly as hell, mate. There are people who are making money in Florida, and no mistake. There truly are. But you have to be more or less in a few singular industries if you're going to make money in Florida. Hospitality is all that there is, and there's so much competition out here. The road I live on, everywhere is just somewhere to eat, somewhere to sleep, somewhere to eat, somewhere to sleep, and it's all because of the industry that Disney's brought in. Just by virtue of being here, there's not very much else going on. Like, you know, in Florida, there's very little other money to be made, which is disappointing. Do you know what I mean? This could be a great place. This could be a very lovely place, but it's just been sort of spoiled by the fact that Disney's got such a stranglehold in all the industry that goes on in this area.
Well, imagine how North Korea is going to feel when Disney moves in there.
Are they doing Disney North Korea? Is that a thing?
I think there are some people who think that that's what's going on over there now.
Is that right?
Holy shit.
That's why Dennis Rodman went over with the Globetrotters. Was they're breaking the ice to essentially turn North Korea into.
We're slowly losing you again, Preston.
Sorry. How's this? Is this better?
Yes.
It's audible.
Well, just that it's going to be kind of like a Jurassic Park for Disney, really, where they've got all this unspoiled territory to convert into tourist attractions. So, and I think that the people are ripe for it too, or at least the leadership is, because they like money as much as the next guy. So
I'll tell you what. You can say one thing for the industry in Central Florida, especially Disney. They just love money.
Oh yeah.
They just love it.
Yeah.
Bless them. They just can't get enough of that money, I'm telling you what.
I have a personal hate towards Disney.
Good.
It was what Mickey did to him when he was a child.
Yeah, I was abused by Mickey.
Anything happens after.
And Goofy got too goofy for me. No, I had purchased some domain names, and Disney was in the domain, and so yeah, I'm kind of I was all pissed about this because I did not build a website. I did not put any characters on the website. It was just I just had a domain name, and you know, people buy domain names. You know, you do that, buy it, you know, you sell them, stuff like that. And I wasn't having any real luck, so I decided to contact Disney personally.
Sure.
So I figured, you know what? Maybe they'd be interested in a domain name.
Let's poke that bear.
And I tell you, yeah, and what happened? Snatched it from me through GoDaddy, saying all this copywriting and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, I did nothing with the name. I wasn't profiting over. I was just, you know, I just had the name. But meanwhile, at the same time, I do some searching. You have these cartoon porn sites using the name Disney in there. And sure, you think they have a, you know, no, that could go on and on and on. You know, that's okay.
Holy God.
You got the characters and everything, you know, but no, sure.
We know what John's putting in his Google search engine there.
God.
Dear.
So,
Nothing
yeah,
about
I
trannies.
hate Disney for that, and I'll never go visit Disney because of that. Oh boy.
I don't know. I hope it got better. I've been there twice. The first time was awesome. The second time had so many more people than the first time we couldn't do anything.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Universal's actually gotten terrible for that as well. They've gotten wicked bad for it. Their recent addition, insofar as Harry Potterland or whatever the bloody hell they're calling it, the lines aren't for the attractions over there. Lines for the attractions, so you can walk onto the fucking attractions, no one will know the difference, like. But the big lines are for the merchandise. It's all for the merch.
Really?
Yeah. People have to have the wands, they have to have the scarves and the sweaters and the whatever else, the Gryffindor bit on the side. You can't walk into the store where they sell the stuff. Like, they have a license to print money in there.
Wow.
I'm telling you, they're making money hand over fist.
Wow.
You're giving John some ideas.
It's just amazing when people do, but I mean, because all that stuff is, one, made in China. Like a shirt, like a T-shirt, might cost, them $1 or $2, and now you just put Harry Potter on there, it's $20.
You give me those fucking wands, sure. That's a bit of wood.
Yeah.
A whittled down stick, and they're selling the things out for $40 a piece, like.
Don't help them.
Honest to God, I tell you, I'd do it. You want a whittled down stick? I'll go fucking whittle wood all day. You're giving you 40 quid a pop, fuck's sake. For that money. Jesus, wep. I'll write whatever you want on the fucking side. I don't care. It's nothing to me.
You're next to some alder bushes and stuff there, aren't you, John?
Yeah.
You must have.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see a booming industry in your future.
I'm a wood whittler.
Dear me.
A wood whittling Wiccan.
I know, tis shameful what they're doing. It's absolutely shameful.
Well, as long as people continue to buy it, I think they're the dumb ones, really.
If
Oh,
they're
yeah, sure, yeah.
choosing to buy it, more power to them.
Supply and demand.
I'm just upset that I didn't think of it first.
Sure, there's no way to make a living, come on.
All I need to do now is to make like an 8-part, super awesomely amazing series of books,
For
and
kids.
then start a theme park, and then sell magic wands.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, how about this? Here we go. This brings up a subject now. How about you got that Christian amusement park going down there in Florida, the Holy Land Experience.
That's right, yeah. I've actually been to it, yeah.
Okay. So from what I'm hearing now is that attendance has been so bad now that they've actually put in a dinosaur exhibition in there now.
Yeah, well, they're closing it now, I'd say, in the next year or two. I think they've actually called it quits.
Okay. Because
they
they
realized-
were losing like a couple $100,000 a year or something like that.
Oh, they were bleeding money. They were just bleeding it. I think they realized no one gave a shite anymore. Like, you know what I mean? They couldn't care less.
Kinan's fault.
How's it going, everyone?
What's up, Jess? How you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Good.
Harry Potter, huh?
Yes.
We have there's a thing out here in Pennsylvania. It's called it's out near Amish County, which is a good couple hours from me. Actually, I did see. I went with the wife over there a few months ago. Sight and Sound Theater. They do these theatrical productions of biblical stories, and I must say they do a really good job. As much as I disagree with the Bible story, they do really do a good job. But again, same thing. Of course, they have the merchandising. People go in there, buy the shirt and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They turned their Noah display into a movie.
Yeah. Well, that's the one I actually saw. I did actually. They had Noah going on. And, it was.
No again. I saw the movie. I'm like, really?
Now, is that what I sound like But Jess sounds like he's kind of muffled to me.
Well, right now you sound good, but that's how you were sounding, yeah, a little
Is that
bit.
right? Well, it's not your fault, Jess. Don't let them put it on you.
I won't. I have
It's
thick
not your
skin.
fault.
Make you feel like shite.
I have thick skin.
It's only the original sin. You need Jesus.
Spare me.
A little bit of Jesus for you now does you good in the end.
Yeah, I rather do stuff on my own without having to worry about, oh, you can save me? I'll save myself first.
That's the lyrics to a song.
I have no idea, but
Yes,
anyway.
it's true.
Interesting.
Jethro Tull, Hymn 47. Great song.
I'm more of a metal guy.
What, you don't like jazz flute? What are you, a monster? Come on.
Come on,
Do you know-
Godzilla.
Do you know how metal jazz flute is?
Totally metal, bro.
John, do you have a ban button here for... That's a joke, Jess.
Okay.
Go with the flow.
We're fine with all kinds of music. What is it a music channel?
Wait, what was that?
Hmm?
Is this a music channel? What are we supposed to be talking about here, John? Aren't you supposed to be the moderator?
I know. I guess I'm running out of subjects here. I mean, we're talking about Florida there and the amusement parks and stuff, you know. So I guess, yeah, Florida's a dead subject. No pun intended, but.
Yeah.
Depends which part.
Foregone conclusion. God.
Martial arts or actual arts?
Sorry, go on.
Is it like arts or martial arts? Which art?
What are you talking about?
I haven't a clue what you're on about, oh boy.
Well, there's like arts with like painting and all that, and there's martial arts, the fighting style.
Nobody said anything about arts.
No, I want to say anything about arts, mate. I haven't a clue what you're on about.
Yeah. Are you smoking, Jess? What are you smoking, Jess?
Yeah, I'm just,
If you're not smoking, start, will you?
I doubt I'm going to smoke.
Hey, I got one. Are we all in America then? We all Americans now?
Well, I am.
I am.
Yeah.
I'm Canadian.
I'm in America.
Well, I mean, I guess Canada's close enough to us crazy people that you might have an opinion. Did anyone hear about Wolfpack getting passed in, forget the state now. Did anyone here know what Wolfpack is?
Yeah, I know. Are you talking about the TYT thing?
Yeah.
What about it?
It got passed in the state finally.
Was this something like recent in the last couple of days?
Yeah, this would have been like yesterday, I think. Vermont.
I think I might have seen
passed in
something
Vermont.
about it, but I didn't actually watch a video talking about it yet.
Never knew about that.
What is that exactly? What is Wolfpack exactly?
It's a super PAC that was formed by the Young Turks, or the Young Turks guy. I forget his name. It's to ban private donation to politicians for public office.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
I could get on that train.
I think it's more to stop corporations from donating.
No, it's for all public money. So everything is funded through the government fund. There is a public fund that no one ever uses.
There's money somewhere that the government is not using?
Well, there's money places that politicians don't use. Just trying to remember. I think it was back when Clinton ran the second time it was an issue. Whoever Clinton was running against made it a point to point out that he didn't take any public money from the government to run for office because, he was so conservative.
Yeah, I always had someone else other than his wife. Yeah, that debacle.
Well, I tried. Someone else try.
Tell me what to do. I'm a man.
I'm
Yes,
asking for
sir.
volunteers.
I didn't come on here to help you. Save your hangout.
We're going. I guess we're going on 3.5 hours now.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. Well, Owen, what's your theological view here? Atheist, theist,
Well,
what?
I've been a big dirty atheist for Jesus going on 14, 15 years, boy.
A big dirty gone atheist, Jesus, God, what?
Oh no, I'm a big old dirty atheist. There's no hope for me at all. None at all.
What?
Gave up on that stuff now, sure, a long time ago.
Were you a Christian at one point?
I was a Catholic for the opening years of my life, and then sure, just kind of called it quits on that. Sure.
Oh, okay. So
No more use of that. I was, yeah. No, sure. I mean, when you grow up in Ireland, you're going to be a Catholic. Like, that's going to happen to you.
Mm.
There's very little else to be said about it. But sure.
Seamus.
No,
Yeah.
I don't know how personal this would be, but do you know if the Catholics are still blowing each other up over there? Or the Irish?
Do you know what? There's actually peace at the moment, but as my father would call it, it's the kind of peace you get when both sides are busy reloading.
I was just going to say, they might not be fighting, but they're thinking.
They're planning they're planning their next big fucking mistake, is what they're doing. No, there's peace at the moment. Yeah, no, people have been causing. I mean, they're still like, you know, the odd gunfight or some idiot lets off a bomb or whatever else, but it's not what it was or anything like what it was, and it likely never will be again, thankfully.
Where will the IRA strike next?
Yeah.
What's that, Jess?
Where will the IRA strike next?
You'll never find. They're an embarrassment even as a terrorist group. They really are. You'll never see a more disorganized bunch of fuckwits. I'm telling you, they couldn't organize a shit if they had diarrhea. They don't know what they're doing.
Even the Taliban are better?
The Taliban know what they're doing, like. The Taliban are organized. They have their stuff right, like. These boys have a clue what's going on.
They need to drink more.
These guys couldn't even get the bomb in the underwear to start with.
They do have the decency, though. To be fair to them, they do have the decency to call in their own bomb warnings. No, they do. They do that. You know, they call the police and say, "Hey, listen, we've got a bomb going off in 2 hours out in front of this building over here. However many people are left in the building is kind of up to you at this point. Bye."
Well, they're polite, I guess.
Yeah, they're fair. They're fair that way, but they're just bloody terrible at what they do. Sure, sometimes they'll threaten to set up a bomb, and then the bomb won't go off, and then they'll be like, "Ha ha ha ha! We fooled you. You wasted government resources on this fake bomb threat. Really, the fucking bomb just didn't explode because they didn't know how to fucking wire the thing."
To give them a warning, is that a way of them ridding of their Catholic guilt?
Oh no.
I have no clue why they do it. I think it's just because they've got, like, the IRA started out as freedom fighters, like, you know what I mean. They're a guerrilla army designed to expel British forces from Ireland, and then the political temperature changed. Ireland achieved some freedom, but not all, and most people said, "Okay, we'll take what we've got," and the IRA said, "Well, no, fuck you. Well, we want to fight for the full Ireland and whatever else," and they it's never happened, and it never will happen. So they just kind of lost political support. They went from being seen as, you know, freedom fighters and heroes to being seen as terrorists and scumbags, and that's because they started behaving like terrorists and scumbags. They're fighting a war that's been over for nearly 100 years.
They should look at SA with the colonies. See how they took out the British, you know, made them leave.
For fuck's sake.
I'm sorry. I started laughing. I heard colonies, and then and then something else. And
You know, the Irish should have looked at the how the colonies got rid of the British.
Well, the situation between that and what Ireland had to do was very, very different. Like, you know what I mean? Two very different territories. It wasn't to do what the colonies did. Just wasn't possible. Wasn't even feasible.
Right.
you know, we had the added benefit of being not next to England.
Yeah, not being the fucking next door neighbors, like, you know.
Oh, he left. Oh,
Did he fuck off? Did he?
he left. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I was kind of wondering, you know, should I kick him or not? But he was getting amusing. I don't know. My next question for him was he on pain medication? I don't know.
Try switching to cocaine. It perks you up, not brings you down, like, you know.
Well, it is Friday night, and he just might have been just getting home from a party. So.
Am I in a time loop?
Oh, is this Friday night?
No. I hope it's not fucking Friday night. Otherwise, I'm fucking Groundhog Day.
Well, that explains a lot about my day.
It's Saturday night.
That answers a few questions. Dear me.
Okay, so what night is it?
It's Saturday. Oh boy. Oh well, it's Sunday now.
Technically, yeah, Sunday morning in the East Coast here.
Maybe.
Lost your audio again, Prescott. Your mouth is moving, but nothing's coming out.
You're officially talking to yourself.
Maybe the party's on Saturday night too.
Yeah, man. Party doesn't stop.
Was that better?
Yes, we're back.
Well, I was just going to say when you were mentioning about them phoning in the planned bombings.
Yeah.
I mean, that does have the psychological effect that it's supposed to have, is one of unsettling your, like, it's kind of like if you don't tell somebody that something's happening, after a while people just kind of get into the, you know, things are going to happen as normal. But of course, if there's the constant threat of the threat, that serves a purpose as much as the threat itself when it actually takes place. So there is that aspect of that, at least to the people that would be receiving the threat.
Sure.
The problem is, as you say, is that over time, when you have a bunch of blundered attempts, that it then kind of looks almost like a joke, and then it becomes more difficult to take, you know, the action serious.
Oh, sure.
So, but I would think that if and of course we don't really know what what the NSA and Homeland Securities are actually hearing in terms of chatter for various possible attacks on the U.S. by Al Qaeda, because they've successfully thwarted every single one of them besides 9/11.
Yeah.
But I would think that half of that chatter is exactly that. It's just chatter just to get people excited, and because that's half of the psychological warfare that they can succeed, or at least that they would be successful at causing all the rats to scurry around,
yeah,
you know, in anticipation, and even if they never actually intended on carrying out anything, it would still succeed on that level.
Well, I would say it's very good that you understand that, because a mournfully high amount of Americans don't seem to understand why the 9/11 attacks took place in the first place. I've heard the most ridiculous answers to the question, why do you think Al Qaeda and attacked you. Like, why do you think there was a terrorist event in the first place? And they say the most ridiculous things, like, oh, they hate freedom, or it's extreme anti-Americanism was my favorite one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that doesn't even fucking mean anything. Those words are literally meaningless.
Agreed. Yeah.
But the whole point of the attack, really, was just to show and say, we can get to you if we want to.
Mm-hmm.
We'll find a way. We'll think of something you haven't thought of, and when you're not looking, we'll get you. That's the plan. And America, you have to say, I mean, to be honest, and it's not nice to say this, but it's the truth, that that terrorist attack was extraordinarily successful. Because America got very, very scared. I've never seen this country so terrified.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if we have any There are some words that I just can't say anymore. Conspiracists.
Conspiracy.
Conspiracy theorist.
It's contagious. Yeah, I don't know if there's any in this room, but
okay. Well, first, I know the word conspiracy tends to have a negative connotation these days.
Yeah, well, 9/11 truthers.
Yeah, the truth movement. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would lean in that camp. Yes.
Okay. All right. See, I guess it's kind of like it's kind of like the New Testament. It doesn't really matter whether it's true or not, because in that sense, if it was true, or if it is true, and it was an attack by Al Qaeda, and it had nothing to do with an inside job, then it was successfully converted into a power grab by government agencies. Or it was an inside job for the purpose of allowing a power grab by those agencies. And
the outcome was either way. The outcome was the same. You know, here we had the Patriot Act, the Homeland Security instituted, and
right, and it all depends on people believing that the threat is real, that they could be attacked, and
problem, reaction, solution, right?
I'm sorry?
Problem, reaction, solution.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I think I die more easily to lightning strikes than terrorist attack.
I'm sorry, Jess, but I can't hear you. You gotta do something about that mic.
Yeah, sorry about that. Silly Mike. Anyways, I die.
Raise your voice a little bit here, because it's very hard to hear you.
I easily die to a lightning strike than to a terrorist attack.
Sure.
Yeah.
But if you talk about terrorist attacks enough, the fear of the terrorist attack will certainly be more effective than worrying about a lightning strike.
Right.
Oh, that much I'll agree to. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have to understand the mindset of the country at the time. The thought that mighty America would be attacked. Come on.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Who would have thunk it?
So it was either brilliant on the part of Al Qaeda to actually initiate the attack, or brilliant on the insiders to basically orchestrate a successful attack of that kind. Mm-hmm. Either way, it seems that somebody was not trying to think of it, Emmanuel, the guy in Chicago.
Manuel?
He's the mayor of Chicago now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Used to be in the White House.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was Secretary Treasurer or something like that, or?
Jess knows who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
He was quoted as to have said, don't let a tragedy go to waste, or don't.
Mm-hmm. That is what he said. Yeah, I remember.
Anyway, he said something to that effect, and it seems that those who are in power, that's what they often try to capitalize on is the using every opportunity, every mistake, every misstep for the purpose of gaining advantage or gaining leverage over their enemies. So, which is why politics is so annoying.
I still remember Tim Geithner.
What about Tim Geithner?
Well, I don't remember much about him anymore because I really don't care about politics, but I hear the name come up.
I was thinking of Rahm Emanuel. That's his name.
That's it. Yeah.
Knew it would come to me.
Yeah.
You know, I said
speaking to like Owen saying, the pride of America, in a sense, a lot of Americans, like not thinking, yeah, we're the strongest. We can't, nobody's gonna come here and mess with the good old U.S. of A. and stuff like that. On the same token, for those, me, I think there is, evidence that there is inside, but that even the pride of America there would say, oh no, our own government would never do that to us. That kind of deal. That's some of the blindness there, to think that there's nothing going on behind the scenes, that there's no agenda going on.
I've never really got into the truth movement myself, primarily because I just sort of never seen any evidence that would push forward the idea that this was actually happening. Like, you know what I mean? I'd never seen anything that was conclusive enough to say that. I've never been convinced of it. I've never seen anything that would really indicate that was the case.
Well, I guess you heard it before. Can point to a couple things off the bat. You have Building 7 that came down, no plane crashed into it. You never had a steel structure fall the way it does, pancake style like that.
Gravity Man.
Gravity Man. The plane going in the Pentagon when, where's the plane? For a plane to go that low, that speed.
You only have one footage of the hit?
Yeah. One video footage from a gas station, nothing from the Pentagon, the most secure building in the world. They have cameras all over the place, no footage released.
Yeah, I found that really suspicious because they all went around and collect all the footage from the surrounding buildings, and they never showed any of it that they collected. Like, I think that would be the biggest evidence for me, really.
Firefighters at the World Trade Center saying I saw like boom, 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 like building windows popping out like explosions, boom, 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 all the way down.
Which, if it was just a plane colliding into it, it wouldn't happen? Is that what you're saying?
Well, when the buildings were coming down, I saw like windows popping out like the explosion, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, there was these bursts of smoke at certain points of the building to kind of, that were what's the word? Consistent with an explosion happening. And then you also have some of the steel frames, the way they were cut on a diagonal angle that would also is done when you're doing a demolition as well. You have some of these steel frames going on. So for me, I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that there is more to the picture, and I think more and more are seeing it now. But like you said, Prescott, the damage is done now, kind of.
Yeah. Well, I think that what it says to me is it says that, like, even if there is an official story, they're not telling us the whole truth, and that's part of the problem. They leave enough stuff to the imagination that they're actually saying that this here is they're actually suggesting the possibility that it's a mental disorder. People who who give themselves to thinking about conspiracy theories, that there's something wrong with their brain, and if we can just find the drug to fix the conspiracy theorists, we'll be all right. But I think that what they're ignoring is that this here is actually just a normal human reaction when there are things that we see that don't make sense. And so there are some elements to that don't make sense, that it doesn't necessarily mean that there was that anyone's blaming President Bush to have kind of done all of this. And he is at the same time the smartest and the dumbest president, according to the same people. So he can't be both. So, but I guess the point that I'm saying is that it's one of those things that we really can't prove one way or the other, and it just leaves a lot of questions for a lot of people that they can spin their wheels around a lot in. And I guess I don't know what in the end it actually. I really don't know what the end game is for people wanting to, at this point, prove any further whether or not 9/11 was an inside job. Because I just don't think that they'll succeed at providing enough evidence that would ever lead to any conviction or incarceration of anybody in power.
I don't know. I mean,
well, you said it there. That would be my big thing. That would be my big thing with it, is that a lot of what I've heard said on the subject is that it is a form of speculation that says, okay, well, we don't have all the information. Some of the information is at best questionable, and that's right. Yeah, no, it is questionable, but that doesn't indicate that anyone in power had anything to do with it. It doesn't prove that. So that's where it kind of all falls to pieces for me. Like, do you know what I mean? It doesn't prove that anyone in power had anything to do with anything, malicious. Like, you know what I mean? And if you're the qualm is that we don't have all the details. Well, I could have told you as soon as the attack happened that we weren't going to get all the details or anything like all the details. It was never going to happen that we were going to get all the details. Like, never in a million years. There was always stuff that was just going to get left out for whatever reason.
And there could be plenty of alternative explanations for why camera footage from the Pentagon wasn't released. But it still comes down to it really. Like, I guess here's the thing about conspiracy theorists that that kind of struck me as funny is that it's like a person who's willing to believe one theory often, not always, but often is also believing a number of other theories. It's almost like once you believe that the government is willing to do something bad, then almost everything that happens ends up being described or explained through an alternative explanation where the government is behind it.
Sure.
And it would be fine if somebody said, look, I've investigated, I think that the 9/11 issue is problematic for X, Y, and Z reasons. But this other conspiracy I have a problem with. They don't do that. It's almost like all the conspiracies are truths, and all the truths are lies. And that's where I stumble. So.
Well, a lot of these things can come down to. I mean, I've been to Roswell, New Mexico, and I've been to Area 51.
The Disney of New Mexico, right?
That's where he got that accent.
I was visiting a friend who lives out there, and he said, "Do you want to go to Area 51?"
Tiny dome where he lives.
I said, no. He said, "Do you want to go? Do you want to go down to Area 51?" I says, "Yeah, sure, fuck it, we'll go." Like, you know what I mean? Never been there, so might as well. And we go up, and we're driving down a main road, and then you sort of take a turn down sort of a back country road, and the country road quickly turns into a dirt road, and then all of a sudden it's not a road anymore. You're basically just driving through the desert. And we were driving. About 10 minutes in, he says, "You can, if you in just a minute," says, "You're not going to be able to see it for very long, and you'll find out why in a moment." But you could sort of start to see in the distance rooftops that you didn't see before because the top of the buildings are camouflaged, so that you can't take pictures of it from the top down with a satellite light. And as we got closer and closer and closer, you could start to see the buildings more and more clearly. All of a sudden, and I do mean out of nowhere, 3 Humvees came out of the desert. No idea where the fuck they came from. They just, poof, magic. Here they are. And they drove up, and they drove up next to us, and we had about 6 guns pointed at us, and they said, "You've got a half a mile to turn around." And we're like, okay. And I said to my friend, like, "Were you expecting this to happen?" And he said, "Yep."
Yeah.
That's what they do every time. And we stopped. We turned around. And we headed back, and the Humvees went away. And everyone was happy again. Like, you know what I mean? Everyone was nice and relaxed. And the conspiracy theorists all the time were like, "Sure, you know, what's going on out there? Like, you know, what's going on down at the Area 51?" Fucking nothing's going on at Area 51. Or at least if there is, we don't know what it is.
They're making future presidents.
They're making future presidents.
I know what it is. It is the home base of our reptilian overlords.
The question is find who's the next president through Yale University from the Area 51. Jeez.
But the idea that it's anything insidious was going on, like the government's keeping some kind of massive secret, is a conclusion that people come to all on their own, without any help or provocation. Like,
I think it's just a lot of security, you know, and no one knowing what's going on there.
Let's see. You guys were smarter than I am, because I would have asked them to drive forward a half a mile, so I knew the exact point that I would have to turn around.
I tell you what, I've never in my life wanted to fuck with people so little. Like, these guys looked serious. Like, we had about 6 guns trained at us, and over a megaphone, they said exactly one thing, which was you have a half a mile to turn around.
Yeah.
And you know what? I fucking took them seriously. I didn't challenge them.
And from that moment on, you knew there were aliens there.
And I knew for certain, and I knew I could prove it.
What would they do if you walked out there, pretended to be deaf, and held up a sign saying that you were deaf?
In Roswell, they have like an annual hot air balloon fair, probably like 20 miles away from the compound, or what we suppose was the compound, like. And on one occasion, one of the hot air balloons got too close to the compound. They broke like a threshold, and they were told to turn around by a helicopter. And they ignored it, or they couldn't do anything about it. They lost control of the hot air balloon, so they shot the fucking thing down.
Well, what do you think a hot air balloon's going to do? It's just going to float.
Yeah. Well, they could have landed, like they could have released the whatever gas they have in there and just fucking floated down, like, do you know what I mean? But they didn't. So they got too close to the compound. They said, "Okay, good luck," and they shot them. They shot them out of the air.
Somebody lost a bet.
Yeah. I've never been more convinced that these motherfuckers will kill you. They'll absolutely shoot you.
Yeah.
Unless you're underground digging, like Megalon.
Okay, guys, it's 2 o'clock here. I'm going to bed because it's Friday night and I got a lot to do tomorrow.
Friday.
Good Friday night. Okay.
You keep messing my head, man. Tell me it's not Friday night just once so I don't freak out.
It's Saturday night here. Or something like.
Oh God.
Like, I'm looking at my fucking phone here, like.
It's Saturday.
Thank God.
And we party on Saturday and Friday night.
Okay.
Prescott,
Prescott, thanks for dropping by, man.
All right.
Good talking with you.
Guys.
Hopefully do it again.
Okay. Take care there, my Irish friend.
All the best, lads. All the best to you. I may have to nip off myself. I've got a friend now.
I
Yeah, I guess it is about that. I would say it probably is about that time. I mean, it's 1 o'clock, going at this for like 4 hours, and yeah. But
Black Chris was on.
There's no greater curse on humanity than Google fucking Hangouts. On my days off, I'm like, what the fuck did I do? Oh yeah, I was in Hangouts for forever. Fuck, what did I do all day?
well, I enjoyed it. I had a good time. I So,
really want to talk to Chris. I missed him though.
so yeah. So Prescott, thanks again. Jess, thanks for stopping by. Phosphorus,
No problem.
Owen,
All the best to you.
Cerebus, man, thanks for dropping by. Everybody have a great night, and hopefully we'll do it again.
Yep.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye now.